Call to order meeting of council Monday, February 22nd, 2021. I'd like to move to vary the agenda to switch 3.3 and 3.4. So moving 3.3 to the end. Seconder, Councillor Lehman, discussion. The reason for this is Councillor Howe is going to be a bit late, so I know he wanted to speak to 3.3 item, so all in favor? Opposed? Carried. Thank you. Approval of the amended agenda. Councillor Norbury.
Thank you, Mayor Bertrand. That the Monday, February 22nd, 2021 budget meeting agenda be adopted as amended.
Seconder, Councillor Majinski. All in favor? Opposed? Carried. Thank you. New business 3.1. WAIVE policy E08. Budgeting policy, report February 22nd, 2021, from the Chief Administrative Officer regarding waiving policy E08, council budgeting policy to allow additional time to complete the operational budget for 2021. Recommendation, please. Councillor Lehman.
The council waive policy E08, council budgeting process, to deviate from adoption of the operating budget by March 1st, 2021.
Seconder, Councillor Gorkalka. Discussion. I just wanted to double check with Ms. Thompson. So we do have the next budget meeting scheduled for March 3rd, was it?
Correct.
Thank you. And we will be seeing operational fee for service and grant and aid then. Thank you. All in favor? Opposed? Carried. Thank you. 3.2, 2019 and 2020 capital and special projects. Report dated February 22nd, 2021 from the Director of Finance with information on capital and special project budget and actual expenditures for the years 2019 and 2020. Excuse me. I'd like to move the report for discussion. Seconder. Councillor Kurkauka, all in favor? Opposed? Carried. Thank you. Would anyone like to begin? Councillor Lehman.
Community center washroom, almost a 30% overage, so I'm just wondering where and why.
Ms. Thompson?
Thank you, Mayor Bertrand. Through council, that I would need to get additional information on. Right now, this is to gather council's questions that you do have. We are able to answer a few of those questions, but for the community center overages, I am not sure what that cost was.
Okay, thank you. Make a to-do list. I guess I'd like to say thank you very much to staff. Very much appreciated, and you know, it really shows to me how much stuff we're expecting staff to complete in a year. And I think this report shows that some things are getting left by the wayside, and that's really my concern, is going through this this list, is finding the things that have been left or incomplete that is still council directed that still need to come forward. One of them being the downtown bin vinyl wrapping project. I know we did get an explanation by staff that cost estimates or quotes went up 3 times, but you know, it still needs to come back to council for approval or not. It is council directed, and the budget was not correct, and we need to discuss about it. So I definitely want to see that one come back. Councillor Kurkauka.
Thank you, Richard. So just a couple of questions about staff. That'd be, I'm not getting to 2020, and I'm talking about some of that stuff in 2019. Has any of that been looked at or moved around. So like one of them, I mean, it's kind of a weird number, so I'm assuming it's probably already spent. And that's the interpretive trail. Page 10 of the 31. That we budgeted $200,000, but we also have remaining still $155,000. If that was done through the community forest, actually, and I believe the funds just ran through the district. So I'm just curious, like on some of the 2019, there's quite a bit of 2019 leftover funds for projects that were done, and I'm just wondering where we're at with the 2019 remaining amounts.
Ms. Thompson?
Thank you, Mayor Bertrand, through council. So on the interpretive trail, there is an amount that is still held in, that we have to spend on it. I believe it's somewhere around about $80,000 for 2020. I'm not sure what was spent, if there was additional that came through that didn't show up in the capital and special projects, but I do know that there is some funding that is still available that wasn't spent from that project. Because I believe some did come from the community forest, but we also received a grant for a portion of it as well.
Councillor?
So just on the interpretive trail, we think there's $100,000 or $80,000, but in the report, it says there's actually remaining of $155,000. Unspent is 77.55%. So we've spent some of that in 2020, which is kind of what you said. What is left to do on that trail? There's approximately $80,000 left over.
Ms. Thompson?
Thank you, Mayor Bertrand. I will have Ms. Sanders answer that.
The Public Works Director is preparing a request to the province to spend those money, and it's for visual enhancements of the trail. But he has to get permission from them to spend that money, so that is in the works.
Thank you. Councillor, follow-up?
Sorry to hammer staff. I mean, first of all, I should thank staff for getting this report in front of us. I understand there's lots that can be answered. So that would be a huge concern, or to me, I want to word it in a negative way here. It's going to come out bad, but to me, that's a red light. Like, to me, that's something, and no disrespect to staff, it should come back. Should have came back, whether it's in 2019 or 2020. And no disrespect, Ms. Thompson, I know you weren't here. So, and to the rest of staff, I'm not hammering them for not, but to me, that's something that should come back before council. Like $80,000. I guess my comment would be back to Councilor Nobre and Chris, I'm not putting you in the spot here. But if you can remember what the community forest gave in funds for the interpretive trail, because I believe it was over 50% of the cost.
Councillor Nobre?
Thank you, Mayor Bertrand. So I'll have to take a little bit of information from before I was on council, before I was with community forest, as this goes back that far. From what I understand, there was two funding sources, right? There was the government stuff, there was the community forest stuff. And from what I understand, the community forest amount that has been donated has been used, and funds that have been unused were returned to the community forest. And then we actually contributed back to the maintenance of the trail, I believe, last year. So from the community forest perspective, we believe that all monies have been accounted for. So if there's anything left over, that would be just like government grant stuff, and I can't really speak to that. From the community forest side, we're good.
Yeah, it would appear, correct me if I'm wrong, Ms. Thompson, but it would appear that it's leftover grant money that's looking to be applied to spend again. Councillor Kirkcalka.
So just on that, and maybe I have it backwards, and staff will put me back down the path here. But if we apply for a grant and get access to a grant for something like that, why would that grant money not be used before, let's say, the community forest became a partner? We can just see how Councilor O'Brien answered that the community forest was giving back some of the money that was unspent, and they in return give it back for maintenance. So we would have spent, to me, if it would have been the grant, maybe the grant couldn't have been used for some of it, I'm not sure, but I'd like clarity on that. But if we could have used up all the grant money, and maybe more money would have been given back to the community forest, who in return would have given us more money back for more maintenance? I don't know, that's just an assumption.
Yeah, I can't really answer it, to be honest. Did you have another question, Councillor Kirkcalka?
No whole week.
Okay. Any other comments, Council? Councillor Kirkcalka?
So when this report's made, and I understand that from staff side that they're waiting to hear back from the province, Will council be updated in regards to that interpretive trail on what the province has stated?
Ms. Thompson?
Thank you, Mayor Bertrand. So with all the questions that are coming back from council, we will create another report that will answer the questions that council has and provide that detail for you.
Thank you. Follow up?
Yeah, I'm good with the interpretive trail. I will be for a follow-up. So this is in the 2020 special projects that were implemented. Economic development, the readiness program, investment ready program. And there's still $21,000 outstanding, 85.98% of the budget. Just curious where we at with on that pass from the staff side.
Ms. Thompson?
Thank you, Mayor Bertrand. On which page?
Oh, sorry, page 8 of 31. Very fourth from the top.
Okay, thank you. So that project is carried forward into 2021. So we do have that as a project in 2021 and it is a carry forward. So that money has been carried forward for the project in 21.
Thank you. Follow up? Okay. Ms. Thompson, the rail export study, that was budgeted 70,000 for, I was under the understanding it was a complete in and out between the Resource Municipalities Coalition. Can you explain a little bit more, please?
Thank you, Mayor Bertrand. So you are correct that that money was put in as a placeholder and that it would be reimbursed by the Resource Municipalities Coalition. However, the way it was budgeted for, we didn't have the offset under a revenue. So that was freeze funds that we should have had an offset on the other side, which we didn't. So not all of these projects are all funded directly from the district because it'll include your grant money, money that was used from reserves and that. And at this time, we haven't detailed where all the funding had come from for these projects.
Right. Thank you. As well as the sidewalk urban design guideline, that's a carry forward to 2021.
Correct.
Thank you. Councillor Kirkowka.
Thank you, Richard. So I do have a few more. The downtown bin vinyl wrapping project, the mayor has already brought that forward. I'm just curious. Like, I understand we put it out, nobody bid back or the bids came back too high, but we spent almost $6,000 doing that. Putting them out for an RFP.
No, as far as I understand, the council vehicle wrap was included in that budget.
Thank you.
Councillor Kirkowka.
So same page, page 8, the next one down, it's still 2019, but the golf course sale, 44,000 was budgeted and we got left over $38,000. Now, I'm not sure what council's opinion is, and I'm not sure what staff direction is on that. But I know there was thoughts of that. I don't know if this council would ever be looking to sell it. I know we threw that out there and it was voted on, but surely there's been some reports about golf courses being sold. One was in Calgary. I believe it was city owned or something like that. They sold it to whoever bought it, come back, they've had it for 3 or 4 years. What actually happened there was it cost the city triple of what it got for selling it because they didn't do any maintaining on it. Right? So they let all the grass go, they let everything go. So if this is something that we're still looking at doing as a council, that we'd be willing to sell the golf course if the right person came along, I think that should be discussed by council, and if not, then we should be taking that off the table so there's no direction to staff to keep pushing to sell the golf course.
Yeah, no,
I mean, there's $38,000 there, and I mean, I'm not saying to take it away from them, but I mean, if we're not looking at selling, why would we ask staff to proceed their time into working to sell the golf course, unless that's something this council.
Ms. Thompson, are you able to comment on that if staff is pursuing that still?
Thank you, Mayor Bertrand. So at this time on the golf course sale, staff is just completing the purchase of the land that was outside, that was encroached on Crown land. So that is currently being completed, and as far as going forward with the project from there, I'm not aware of anything else besides that at this point.
So the line item golf course sale was to take care of the boundary issues down there?
No.
No, okay. Okay. Councilor Majinski.
So then that doesn't include the road access part of that we had to deal with the Crown.
Well, that was part of the boundary issue, was the road access as well. And then there was some, like, down along the whole one, the boundary wasn't correct. But from what I understand, this line item golf course sale was to advertise the selling of the golf course. Is that correct? Okay. And so are we continuing that?
At this time, the project hasn't moved forward because of the encroachment issues. So I would have to go back to staff to find out where we're at. I do know we're there, but I don't know beyond that what the timeline is to get the boundary changed and then to go from there. So I'm not sure where that one was at.
Okay. Councilor Kirkcalka?
So that's the comment would be to staff, would be to this council, what their opinion of council is. If we want staff to continue, once we have all their stuff in $5 and T's crossed, I think it's $20,000 or staff has come forward for the 2021 budget to finish the payoff to the province or whatever the problem is there to have it all signed off on. Do we want to be looking at still selling this golf course?
I don't. Councilor Norbury?
Thank you, Mayor Bertrand. I'd be interested in having that conversation, whether we want to go down it. And I think the pertinent information would be to see what revenues the golf course actually bring in for us, right? Is it positive? Is it negative? So I'd be interested in having that conversation.
Okay. Councilor Majinski?
Yeah, once we have all of the proper area covered and we own it and it's in our hands, then we can have that discussion at that time. I don't know if it'll be something we'll discuss tonight, but at a later date, absolutely, once we have the encroachment issues resolved, and then we can go forward from there.
That sound like a plan, Ms. Thompson? Can bring
Yes.
that forward?
Thank you, Mayor Bertrand. Yes. I am aware that there is some interest in somebody to purchase, or there has been interest for purchase of the golf course. I'm not sure what year, but there is some interest there, so we can definitely bring it back after all of that is done and get an answer from council.
Thank you. Any other comments, Councilor Kirkcalka?
Yeah, it might have to be on a list back to staff, would be the RV park upgrades, budgeted $10,000 on, this 100% is left over from 2019. Just wonder, maybe you already have the answer what that was for, and if not, if we could just get a list via email or whatever. I mean, I don't remember exactly what we were looking for, if it was from council side or if it's from staff side. And if it, just what those items were, and obviously it hasn't moved at all since 2019.
Ms. Thompson?
Thank you, Mayor Bertrand, through council. From what I understand, there was some drainage issues up there, and there was some information on whether or not we needed to lift some of the RV lots. Staff had filled in some holes, just with some labor, and there was no capital required on it. And at this time, there hasn't been any additional concerns with drainage now that staff had filled some of the holes that were there, and it was just done through operational.
Okay, thank you. Other comments? Councilor Kirby?
Thank you, Mayor Bertrand. I have a question regarding the Murray River Cumulative Effect Committee. Who is sitting on that committee at the moment? And just maybe a refresher on that. And that seems to me it was something we paid every year, but there was someone from council that sat.
Yeah, I'm not aware of anyone from council. I believe somebody from staff, but I'll confirm. Ms. Thompson?
Thank you, Mayor Bertrand, through council. So Director Beal was sitting on that.
And is that continuing? Not that you know of?
I'm not aware of why that project is at.
Okay. Be interesting to know what came out of it or what information was collected there. Be nice to get a report back from that. Councillor Lehman?
Thank you, Mayor. Just a couple of things. The downtown sidewalk assessment and the airport infrastructure assessment. We spent $70,000 for what exactly?
Ms. Thompson?
Thank you, Mayor Bertrand. The airport assessment is a 53 or 63 page report that did come back to council that was part of the asset management plan. And that's where it talks about what we have for the airstrip and for the building and the upgrades that were required on it, and it did a comparison with other airports in the area as well.
Okay, and the sidewalk assessment?
The sidewalk assessment, we do have a sidewalk assessment report that we do have that details what we currently have, and then the next part of that is gonna be the urban design guidelines. So we have an assessment of what our sidewalks currently are, and now we need our design guidelines so that we can look at starting to replace, but we have to decide, bring back to council to find out what materials we wanna replace what we currently have.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Kirkowka?
So on page 9, halfway up the page, so just below after this, is the CSTCA Fitness Center, 25,000 that's been used. And the only reason I bring that forward is I look at, and it's previous down our agenda, so I'm not bringing it forward to discuss it. But there's a thing that's been brought forward by a councillor in regards to the expansion of the gym and facility. Is that what those funds were issued for in 2019?
Ms. Thompson?
Sorry, 2019 or 2020?
Oh, sorry, 2020.
It's in 2020.
Sorry, my apologies.
Okay, sorry. So I do know that was in part with the daycare center project, that the daycare would have moved, there would have been funds there to look at expanding the fitness center. So because the daycare project didn't move forward, neither did the fitness center.
Follow up?
Yeah, so the only reason I asked that question is again, not to get into Schedule A, further down our agenda. I'm just saying those could be funds that we already allocate. They're in here, they could be just flipped over, would be my understanding. I mean, if they're not gonna be used due to the daycare being turned down this time, not that we're getting off the table of not pursuing a daycare continually, that could be something that's used there where we wouldn't have to refund those.
Yeah, so from what I understand, whatever is unused or, grant-dependent projects that didn't go forward just gets carried over into reserve or surplus. Is that correct, Ms. Thompson? Can you explain that a little bit more, please?
Thank you, Mayor Bertrand. So you are correct that we do flow through a lot of our leftover capital gets flowed through into surplus. We are doing a further analysis and are moving more towards carrying it forward through reserve for future expenditure. So it's not carried through surplus. So this money is physically there, which is part of our reserves and part of our surplus, which is the next report that talks about our reserves and surplus. That's where some of that money is. So we do carry forward projects, but now we have a better detail of all that, those funds not just flowing through surplus. So technically they are there in cases where we haven't carried them forward. We just have it as a general reserve for future expenditure.
Yeah. Thank you. Councillor Majinski.
Thank you, Mayor Bertrand. I know we just talked about the downtown sidewalk assessment with your report coming forward on that. How does that coincide with the sidewalk urban design guideline further up in 2020 on the same page of 8? Is it going to be the same thing, or how does that go forward? Is it,
Second, Councillor Majinski. Councillor Kirkowka?
Yeah, so I'm actually not gonna excuse myself, so I just wanna make sure it's where, because in the previous discussion, when it came to this, I excused myself due to I own a business, I feared I could be in a conflict or presumed in a conflict. So staff has reached out to lawyers. I am not in a conflict, and I just wanna make that known, because I did leave the last discussion on this, and it might look weird that I'm sitting in for it now, but I am not in a conflict, so I will be sitting in.
Thank you. Ms. Thompson?
Thank you, Mayor Bertrand. So the sidewalk assessment was to figure out our widths and our depths and exactly what we have and drainage. So now the urban design guidelines, it's not only for sidewalks, it's gonna be what do we want the downtown to look like? Do we want benches? Do we want sidewalks? Do we want sidewalks that are just pavement? Do we want stamped? Do we want concrete? So now this is the design guidelines for what we want the downtown to look like. So it's beyond the assessment of the sidewalks, saying that they need to be replaced, there's drainage issues, that stuff on the sidewalk assessment, and this is now our design guidelines.
Follow up?
well, that definitely makes sense, because you'd absolutely need to have the assessment done ahead of time so that you can kind of weed out which options you have in the design guidelines. Just wanted a clarification on that to make sure that's.
Well, Councillor Howe, we are on 3.2 and we 3.3 and 3.4, we switched them around, so just so you know. Councillor Kirkowka?
Yeah, thank you, Your Worship. So page 9 of 31, and I've already actually talked to Ms. Thompson about this, but I just want to bring it forward again, and that's the log signpost installation. So it was budgeted in 2019, didn't get done then. It was carried over to be budgeted in 2020, it did not get done. I would like confirmation from staff that this will actually get done in 2021. So we have an artist that has redid the signs for this for previous council 2 terms ago. But they've been sitting and stored, I believe, in her house or wherever she's dealing with them. So this is a concern that we still haven't done it. So I just want to confirm that this is something for sure on the table for 2021, since it was held up way before 2019. 2015, I think I was elected into council in 2014, and it was the previous council that was dealing with this. I would just like confirmation on that.
Ms. Thompson?
Thank you, Mayor Bertrand. So staff is committed to completing that project this spring after the frost is out and everything, we'll be reaching out to the artists. So it is on the list for 2021 to complete. However, it's staff time now. There would be no capital costs that are with it at this time.
Thank you. Follow up, Councillor? Okay. I do have a question about, on page 10, the pressure relief valve telemetry monitoring, we budgeted $1,000 at the bottom of the page. I'm just wondering where that project is at. I would assume are very important to our water system, so Ms. Thompson, if you could clarify that, please.
Thank you, Mayor Bertrand. So yes, it is as a 2019 capital project. It was delayed into 2020, and it actually shows up as a capital project on page 9. It's the second last item under 2020. It's PRV telemetry monitoring. So the cost was higher in, the budgeted cost was higher in 2020 versus 2019. However, staff did realize that the budgeted amount needed to be increased, so it was moved, that money was carried forward into 2020 and the project completed in 2020.
So it is complete then?
It is.
Okay, thank you very much. Councillor Majinski?
Yeah, just on that, so the PBR telemetry monitoring system budget was 30,000 as per piece, and then we needed 3, correct, for 2020? Yeah. It wasn't a $70,000 increase.
Gotcha. Thank you. Any other comments, questions? Councillor Howe, did you have any comments or questions in regards to 3.2?
Yeah, I don't know if you've already covered it, I don't understand the last on page 931, tractor replacements, $500,000 remaining in budget. For the tractor? I don't understand that, I thought we bought the back truck.
You did,
Covered that
yeah.
already, I don't know.
No, we haven't. I'm just confused on the question. Sorry.
Well, it's not purchased, isn't it?
Not 19, but 2020 was.
2020,
So it's in the
yeah, it was
2020.
just carried forward to 2020. I have noticed, Ms. Thompson, a few projects have been over budget, and a slight few have been significantly over budget. I'm just wondering on the process, I guess, I think council needs to be aware of those overages. And could you comment on how we've been dealing with them in the past, please?
Thank you, Mayor Bertrand. So my understanding is in the past, when we do bring costs, we're not always bringing Class A costs to council. you know, at the time, it's like we budgeted this much. So sometimes stuff is running over, sometimes stuff is under budget. Staff has balanced it in the past, right? Yes, we were over budget here, but we were under budget there, so we're balancing it. So, I mean, part of the plan to move forward is that when we are bringing costs, we would like to bring tighter costs to council. But also sometimes when we do get our estimates, by the time we are purchasing something, it's like 8 or 9 months down the road, and prices have changed. And especially when we look at with some items that are over budget, sometimes it's supply, that when we do actually go out, the price has changed because of supply. So I'm not exactly sure on every project what has happened, but in some cases that is what has happened.
So in the future, are you planning to have a bit more tighter accounting project by project?
Yes, sorry, thank you, Member Trent. So yes, I would like to find a process with staff and with council that we can agree to where, you know, it says, yes, this is our budget, but if it's within X percentage, staff would be okay with that. Or if we are over a percentage and we know we're coming to that level, that we do come back. An example is when we brought back the welcome signs. You know, we did realize we were going to be over budget because we did miss something, so we did bring it back to council saying, you know, we are going to be over budget. This is where we can have the funds from, and just have council approval for it.
Is this an opportunity for policy, or do we have a policy in place at the moment that we're kind of following in this regard? Or is this an opportunity to develop a new policy?
It's opportunity to maybe update and change some of our policies that we currently have in order to accommodate this. One of the bylaws that we will be bringing forward is the delegation of authority bylaw, and that'll be coming in the next few months. And within that, we can create some spend limits or what percentages we could be over budgets on certain capital and special projects. So it's in the works.
Perfect, thank you. Councillor Howe.
Yeah, I did have a question about the community center washroom renovations. It's showing up about 30% over budget, $110,000 for the washrooms that, you know, again, sound like a broken record in here that we were told we were putting them in for wheelchair access. Is that because we have wheelchair access in the bathrooms now in hindsight, or do we still not have wheelchair access sinks in the bathrooms?
Ms. Thompson?
Thank you, Member Bertrand. So as far as I'm aware, there's been no renovations done to the counter height to drop it down. And council had spoke about a little bit earlier, and we'll be bringing back information on where the over budgets were. I don't have that information.
Okay.
Thank you. Any other comments, questions, Councillor Majinski?
Thank you, Member Trent. I did speak a lot with our CEO today, so I don't have a lot of questions, but another one that just pops up in my mind here is the roof anchors. Is that project completed? Okay, and if so, we spent $36,000 and it's still piling up with ice, and we have plastic coverages for people to walk around. Is that what that was to reduce the risk of, or what was the what was the main priority of spending $36,000 on the roofs to not have the snow to slide down? Instead, now we have piles of ice there. Just a concern. That's probably.
Yeah, that's definitely a change that we haven't seen in the past. It's been roped off now, just a walkway. Ms. Thompson, can you comment on that?
Thank you, Member Tran, through council. I will need to find out more detail about that project and what all did go on there. I'm not completely familiar with that project.
Thank you. Any other comments, questions? Okay, moving on. 3.4 reserves and established reserve bylaws. Report dated February 22nd, 2021 from the Director of Finance providing clarification of reserves and the details of bylaws associated with established reserves. Like to move this report for discussion. Seconder. Councillor Norbury, all in favor? Opposed? Carried. Thank you. Like to start? Just like to again thank staff for putting this together. This is excellent information and good and well appreciated. Thank you. Councillor Kirkcalka?
Yeah, so I guess, yeah, I mean, I think it's great information, but if I just get some clarity, so when we have surpluses from 2020, I understand the previous meeting that we brought some stuff forward that will carry forward into 2021 for whether it's contractors are just waiting for the stuff to arrive. But for stuff from 2019, that to me looks like most of it probably won't get done or not move forward. Is there an automatic breakdown amount that goes into reserves when there's an overage for the previous year? So if we budgeted $15 million for 2019 and only spent $11 million, is there $4 million that gets carried over? I understand some will get spent in 2020, like the back truck and all that. But the stuff that doesn't, is there not a mechanism that comes into place that certain percentages go to each of these reserves?
I see what you're saying. Yep. Ms. Thompson.
Thank you, Member Bertrand, through council. We're currently doing a bit deeper analysis on 2019. We have transferred an amount instead of leaving in reserve, or sorry, leaving in surplus. We actually have transferred it to a reserve for future expenditure. We haven't earmarked it into specific reserves. It's just in the reserve for future expenditure at this time. We're still doing a further analysis on everything because normally we had let it flow through surplus, and I'm a bigger fan of transferring it into reserves and finding more detail on that. So at this time, it's just in reserve for future expenditure.
Follow up.
Yeah. I guess my fault is there not, so I understand the bylaws for the reserves, but is there not another bylaw / policy maybe that states if there's this much over in surplus that the breakdown for it to go into certain reserves, like land, the water, the sewage, is a percent or so much? Is that not a policy or a bylaw that we do that every year when there's leftover?
Well, I think there is something written in there a little bit about it, but it is quite open to council direction. But Ms. Thompson, can you clarify, please?
Thank you, Member Bertrand. If you look at our policy, the reserve management fund, so anything that, like, let's say on page 31, so anything that's water and sewer funds, that if there's anything left over in the utility fund because it's self-funding, that would go into the water and sewer reserve funds. There's the general fund as well. We do have the stabilization reserves. One thing that we did note that we will be doing a further analysis on is any interest that is earned on what we have in the reserves by bylaw, that interest should be transferred yearly into the reserve funds, which we currently have not been doing.
To follow up?
Yeah, so the reason I asked that question in previous years, I've pretty much asked that same question because there's items that we budgeted for. So there was one in 2019, it was $25,000 for the weight room. So I'm not sure what it was listed as, but more or less the gym. And I understand due to the grants and stuff for the daycare as we carried over. Previously, I've been told that amount, because it's probably something that's not going to get done, instead of moving it from 2019 into 2020, there was no need to, so it still sits in 2019. Percentage of that amount is all broken down and what reserves it goes into. So if all of a sudden this council, and I believe it's coming up again, and it's the expansion of the gym. So the reason I bring that forward is there's actually money there. So if we put it back into reserves because we didn't spend it, I mean, I'm not blaming staff for not spending it. We didn't get grants for the daycare, so how do you spend it? But if I tax the residents in 2019 for $25,000 to do that, you can get done in 2019, you can get done in 2020, now it goes into a reserve. Now we're bringing it forward to do it again. Now I'm going to tax them again. So you're saying while you guys clean this up, that'll stop happening?
Oh, I think part of it is to use the RFFP, I believe. But Ms. Thompson?
Thank you, Member Bertrand, for council. So you're correct in a way that we are putting that $25,000 for the weight room, but we're not earmarking it for weight room. If we did that, we would have 70 reserve accounts. So what we do is we just put it into a reserve for future expenditure. So when we are going through with some of these projects, staff is aware of, projects that have, money has been set aside but not moved forward. So then that's why when we are proposing to council, we do pull money out of reserve. So we'll say, 25,000 for weight room, we will actually pull that out of reserve because it's just in a general reserve for future expenditures, not in individual reserves like you mentioned.
Go ahead.
Yeah, I totally agree with you. That's what you stated. Glad you're here, because that's not how it was done previous years. I mean, I'm sorry, unless I'm wrong. You guys are all here. I do not remember hearing last year when we did the budget. I mean, Ms. Thompson wasn't here. I didn't hear anything was being pulled out of here or out of there. There was some things mentioned, like the back truck would be carried forward into 2020 because that's when the payment was coming. We ordered it, didn't get delivery, so that was carried forward. But some of the other smaller stuff that we budget for, 50,000, 100,000, it doesn't get done. I've never heard that comment. How we put it up here and then we'll remember it's there and we're going to pull it out to use it. That's not what was said in the previous year. So I'm glad to hear that, because the problem I have before is when we're budgeting for certain things, doesn't get done, whether it's contractors or whatever, including the wrapping up in. That just gets left to the side, and we re-budget for it in 2021, and then charge the taxpayers to redo that same program. And then we have all this extra money, which is great because we're doing investments, but at the same aspect, I like the concept of having that surplus over there so we can pull back up.
Sure. And that's really where the RFFP is going to clean a lot of that up, I believe. I like that idea. It's good. Any other comments, questions? Councillor Howell?
The RCMB building, we were talking about that last meeting. Let's deal with that.
Ms. Thompson?
Thank you, Mayor Bertrand, through council. So when we started looking into the bylaw, as far as we can understand that was from bylaw 160, was for municipal buildings. So I think when the building was built, it was done through the district. We don't currently own the building, but it was still earmarked for RCMP. So in order to use those funds going forward, it can be used for any building. It just was earmarked in our financial as RCMP building.
Follow up, Councillor?
Yeah, so would it not make sense for us to then change that so that this doesn't always keep coming forward every budget meeting, that we just put that into our municipal buildings or call it some other type of, maybe it could be for the town hall or for public works? To me, I'd rather just have it in municipal buildings funds, but we should change it, I think.
Absolutely. Ms. Thompson?
Thank you, Mayor Bertrand. And that's part of what this report is. We are looking at cleaning up some of those reserves, and it most likely is just a change in our accounting description that comes with it. So, this is where we're at with it, and this is what it has been earmarked for years. So we're looking at cleaning up some of those things. And we do have a project that we're looking at the town hall building envelope, public works, and for fire hall. We are planning on making these reserves go down to zero and moving them and updating everything that we currently have. So it's our description that says RCMP building, but yeah, we can definitely change that description.
Thank you. Follow up?
And so that will be coming forward in a meeting later on this year. You guys are going to remember that, pull that out for us, and just bring it to us?
Ms. Thompson?
It's only our description. Sorry, it's our description that we have in our GL. So it's just a matter of us changing that description in our GL. So it doesn't need to come back to council. It's just the way we've had that description in there.
Okay.
Thank you. Councillor Howell?
Reserve for future expenditure. So that is basically stuff that we have not set away into reserves for any specific reason, right? That is not accounted for anything, right? It's just sitting there. If we needed it for something unexplained, we can utilize it. Is that right?
As far as I understand, it's liquid, yeah. Ms. Thompson?
Thank you, Member Trent. So the RFFE that we have in there that says reserve for future expenditure, that is where, like we're talking about the 25,000 for the weight room. When we're talking about other projects where we've been over budget or sorry, under budget, not over budget, that is where that is going into, is reserve for future expenditure. So we haven't split anything out yet. We haven't, brought anything back to council saying, we would like to split this out more, or it's just a general reserve for future expenditure. So you can use it for buildings, you can use it for renovations, equipment, different things.
trustee. Follow up?
Yeah, so just for clarity, so there are those smaller amounts in there of 25,000, but we're talking $7.3 million. There's a large amount that's in there that is not account. We're not planning on spending that 7.3 over the next whatever. There's a small portion of it that's for weight room and Vector or whatever that hasn't been spent yet. But the majority of it is savings.
Ms. Thompson?
Thank you, Member Transfer Council. Correct, you are correct that it is for any infrastructure spending that council chooses or that staff is recommending that we use some of those reserves from.
Thank you. Councillor Kirby?
Thank you, Member. On that reserve for future expenditure, those are overages. Do you have a breakdown on how those overages are kind of, gathered throughout the years, like where they're coming from? Just a better idea on how that accumulated to 7.3 million?
Ms. Thompson?
Thank you, Member Transfer Council. At this time, I don't have a full accounting of when that money went in, how many years it's been there, or anything. We just have not had that time to break that down and go back into the records to find that information.
Thank you.
Councillor Majinski?
Thank you, Mayor Bertrand. So would special projects come out of this then? So say, I don't know, like the very first one here, permanent trail development, would that come out of the reserve for future expenditure?
Ms. Thompson?
Correct, staff would do an analysis. I know on that one, you're talking about the trail development, there's a possibility of a grant. So at this time, staff would be saying, yes, this can come out of reserve if council chooses, or, we have options that we can provide council for it, but it could come out of that reserve for future expenditure.
Surplus operating and capital reserves of 5.6 million. That's also an operating reserve, correct? So can you explain to council about how district operates in surplus all the time and we're kind of collecting a year previous? Ms. Thompson?
Thank you, Member Bertrand. So yes, we do have that 5.6 million that's under surplus operating and capital. So we do have money or funds that have been raised that aren't necessarily allocated to capital because we didn't finish the project, didn't carry it forward. But we do also have cases where we've budgeted, we've raised funds, and then it's an operating surplus. So let's say we budgeted for 9 million of operating and we come in at 8.5. So those funds are flowed through surplus. So it's a operating as well as capital surplus.
Gotcha. Okay, thank you.
I do not have further detail on the breakdown of it though.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Howe?
Can you explain to us what the reserve for tax stabilization is for?
Ms. Thompson?
Thank you, Member Bertrand. So under our policy TR33 at the end here, we do have the stabilization reserve. So that is if there is a year where we wouldn't collect heavy industrial taxes, that money is set aside for stabilization to recover for a year. So within it, we are to hold 5 to 10% of total consolidated revenue. This is something I'm still looking into as well, but we do transfer funds to that stabilization each year.
Councillor, follow up?
Yeah, so maybe I just don't understand maybe I understand the concept of what it's there for, but like your example of if we didn't collect any from the heavy industrial, that's not a possibility. That can't happen, right? Is there?
Well, there's a possibility a lot of our heavy industrial could go down or could shut down, so it would definitely decrease the amount collected.
Sure, but not the entire section.
True.
So okay, maybe my thought is, okay, let's just say the Wolverine mine, for instance. I think we do about $2 million in taxes from the Wolverine mine, somewhere in that general vicinity. So next year or 5 years down the road, if they were to shut down, we're getting ready for the point there they tear the plant out or something. That's the only point at which, or they go into care and maintenance like PRC did, and then we stop receiving the money from them, or 10% of the money from them. Would that be the time that we would be building up that reserve for tax stabilization, thinking that, okay, we know Wolverine has shut down and they've got 5 years down the road till they pull their buildings out and we're getting ready to, you have a long time before you're going to spend that money. You're prepping for it and getting ready for it. And is that, you would use that in a budget to say, hey, guess what, in 2026, that money's not going to be there. we need to now either take a portion of that out, or is that the time where you would then increase the taxes on everyone else if you were, short?
Have you had experience using the tax stabilization before, Ms. Thompson?
Thank you, Mayor Bertrand. So I don't have the experience using tax stabilization here in Tumblr and how it works. In a previous municipality I was in, we did also have, not at this level, but we did have a bit of a stabilization fund there that was like, and it didn't only have to do with like a closure, it could have been an assessment change that, you were getting $500,000, the assessment changed, it dropped you down to 250. So instead of shifting everything over to another tax class or to shift it over a longer period of time, to slowly increase, to make up that difference, you were able to continue your budget and your operating and your capital where you were, but actually use some of those funds that were there. And then when the assessments came back up, then you started putting more money back into that reserve account that was there. So you,
Buys you some time, okay.
yeah, it allows you to shift year to year.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments, questions? No? Okay, good. I guess one other thing, Ms. Thompson, I am kind of disappointed that we haven't been following our policy as far as allocating interest into these reserves, and also realistically allocating a percentage, I believe, to each of these reserves every year. Do you have a plan on this moving forward, Ms. Thompson?
Thank you, Mayor Bertrand. So I do understand what you're saying, to be transferring into reserves every year, but we also have to be looking at how much we're spending in capital as well. So I mean, if we weren't spending any money on capital, all that money would be going into reserves. So you have to find that balance of what we're spending on capital and what we're transferring to reserves. So there is a fine line that goes with it. When you're talking about the interest, I don't think we can do that in 1 year because that money that we do have from interest, we are using it for our operating. So that's going to be kind of like a gradual transfer to shift that as well, to get that, to move that money into the reserves as the policy states. To take that money right out of operating this year would be quite significant. So we'll have to do some analysis on it and make slow moves toward it so that we don't have that large hit on operating budget because we are transferring to reserves.
Yeah, I definitely understand that, but it is obviously a policy that we have in place that we have not been following. So either we amend or get rid of the policy or actually follow it. So, okay, thank you. Councillor Howe?
Just to follow that up, is that what we want to do with the interest from the money that we get? Do we want to put it back into the reserves? I mean, we're already by bylaw putting a certain amount of money into reserve. And then, we've made some good investment decisions in the last few years. We're getting a nice little, $500,000, $600,000 in interest we're making on our money. I mean, that's an awesome thing. Do we want to just take that money and instantly put it into reserves? Is that what we want to, even the policy says to do that?
Yeah.
What we want to do?
Yeah, it's, I'm not really sure. It only makes sense to me it's nice to have these reserve funds, but if we're not adding to them or if we're not enhancing them ever, there's really, I don't know, it doesn't account for inflation over years or possible infrastructure replacement too. Councillor Howe?
I thought we add to our reserves every year by bylaw. I thought it's added to every year.
But I don't think it's broken down into each one of these. Ms. Thompson, can you clarify, please?
Thank you, Mayor Bertrand. So what we are transferring into reserves each year is for our asphalt replacement, our airport infrastructure, and the machinery and equipment depreciation reserve, and then reserve for tax stabilization. So those are the 4 dedicated that we are transferring to. There's others that will come up in the future as well. But those are the 4 that we have committed to transferring each year. So we are transferring, but we're not covering, and it is, that interest, it is part of the policy to be putting it into reserves, which we haven't.
Yeah.
It's something that council can reconsider.
Yeah, and so as far as the bylaws that we have for these reserve funds, it kind of states in the bylaw that it's really up to council direction on what we want to put into that reserve fund. But I think personally, we should have some sort of a policy to either put their interest back into the reserve fund or contribute to it on a yearly basis in some way. It doesn't make sense to me to have these bylaws and then just, well, here's a choice, you can add to it if you want or not, but it doesn't really make sense for a reserve, in my opinion. Councillor Majinski?
So you're suggesting that we should go line by line of each asset and have a percentage dedicated to each one in the policy?
Well, I think the asset management program will like break down machinery and equipment and all the different categories, but I think by policy, if we clearly state that, we have clearly stated in policy that we want the interest to go into these reserves, and they're not. So I think it begs further analysis and maybe amending some of these bylaws as well. Councillor Norbury.
Thank you, Mayor Bertrand. I guess when it comes down to, like, in my opinion on these reserves, my thought is as long as we're covering our depreciation of these reserves, right? That was, from my understanding, what we were doing, right? Putting money aside so we don't have, tax for it later, right? As long as we're covering ourselves that way, wherever our investment money is going, if all roads lead back to putting money away for our roads or putting money away for our machinery and equipment, that's just a few numbers that the finance department deals with, right? That's fine as long as we have our bases covered. That's what matters, right? Where all the revenues come from and where they go to. I think that may be adding a little more in that we need to do, right?
Yeah, and that's why I suggest policy, just so it's not up to each council to decide, sort of thing. A policy is put into place, then it's kind of a guideline. Councillor Kirby?
Thank you, Mayor Bertrand. One more question on the future expenditure reserve. Is there a limit before that filters into something else? I'm just wondering with policy what that can build to.
Ms. Thompson?
Thank you, Mayor Bertrand. Through council, so there is no limit on that. I mean, as we're doing further capital assets and asset management, we actually only have a little bit for buildings, right? So do we want to start creating a reserve that would be for buildings, and then you can transfer from future expenditure, you can actually earmark it for buildings, or you can earmark it for something else. So, as we do further analysis in that, you can actually move that funds out of, instead of just a general future expenditure, it can be moved into a specific fund, let's say for buildings.
Councillor Lehman?
Thank you, Mayor. Absolutely, I was going to mention, I think putting extra money into municipal building fund would be something we should definitely look at, because we have a lot of money that's scheduled to be spent on these buildings. And I think it would only be prudent to put some of the money aside before we get to that.
Absolutely. Ms. Thompson?
Thank you, Mayor Bertrand. So that is, and that's kind of why I brought up buildings, because we do know that we do have a lot of money that is there. While we don't have anything earmarked directly for buildings, we do have the ability to use some of that future expenditure for buildings, but it would be prudent as we're doing our asset management plans to actually earmark some of that stuff specifically for those items.
Thank you. Other comments or questions? And just one last thing, nitpicky thing I noticed in the bylaws. I talked to Ms. Thompson about it earlier, it had mentioned that we are supposed to be holding these in Royal Bank of Canada account. So I was curious if we need to amend that to not include Royal Bank, or Ms. Thompson, can you clarify, please?
Thank you, Mayor Bertrand. So when you are creating bylaws, if one portion of a bylaw becomes invalid, it doesn't make the whole bylaw invalid. It does state to hold it in the Royal Bank. At this point, it still has the reserves there. We are planning on eventually getting away from some of these bylaws and by using some of them up going forward. But to me, it's just one portion of the bylaw that becomes invalid. It's not the whole thing, and that's all right in legislation.
Thank you. Any other final questions, comments? Again, thank you very much to staff for putting that together. 3.3, 2021 Council Special Projects, report dated February 22nd, 2021. Chief Administrative Officer regarding special projects or projects of interest submitted by Council for the 2021 budget deliberations. I'd like to move this report for discussion. Sure. Councilor Kirkcaldy, all in favor? Opposed? Carried. Thank you. So thank you, Council, for bringing some of these items forward. A lot of great ideas here. Anyone would like to start? Councilor Kirkcaldy.
Yeah, I just like to talk about the perimeter trail development. One day I talked to council about it in previous meetings. Staff has worked on it here. And to do the whole project, they're estimated at $526,000. In our agenda, it also talks about applying for a grant. Definitely be reading a motion after the discussion. But I also want to have council just think about that and realize that if we get a grant, we're going to move ahead with some of it. But my thoughts on that as well is to try and get council support to earmark this $526,000. I mean, in Class C, I believe is what they say. But earmark some to be done this year, even if we don't get the grant. I mean, this is something for healthy living for our residents. You see the amount of people that are out on the walk pass in the summertime, never mind on Sunday when we ended up with +8, I think. I mean, the walk pass was fairly full. And I think this just goes forward with previous councils that started the walking pass. So, I mean, don't want to take it any away from them, but I think they had an idea here. I'd just like to see us actually continue on with it. I understand from staff, and I was in and talked to Ms. Thompson in regards to asphalt and paving. There was really nothing talked about doing paving in 2021. That doesn't mean that we can't put that out to be done for 2021. Some of it or whatever. We've also earmarked $100,000 already within the public works budget for trailways, bear walks. So they could already be bringing in the paving company to do some bear walk. I'm not speaking for staff. I'm not sure the plans are. So I would just hope the council, we're going to discuss that there's some thought that we can support there to move some of this into the 2021 capital.
Councilor Norbury.
Thank you, Mayor Bertrand. So I agree wholeheartedly with Councilor Falca in supporting the project. If we're looking at what's the vital versus the non-vital, the initial 2,000 meter from south looping, I think it's something we should be trying to move forward quickly. And I'll speak to it because I personally use that every year for my own development. That's the triathlon loop, and I know when I'm out there running, I can see people's tracks, and I do see people along the highway. Let me tell you, when you're on the highway, you're on the highway. You have maybe 3 feet, not even, like, you're right there on the highway, right? And like right beside it, and having a path there to run on. Now with my baby, I'm out there with my stroller. I can't complete that loop. I'm adapting and do it inside. But having that option for people that are encumbered by whatever, it doesn't have to be strollers. It can be for their scooters, which we have an increasing number every year. Still having that opportunity for them to get out there and get out on that section is quite amazing, and I absolutely support continuing that and developing that as soon as possible.
Okay, thank you. Councilor Lehman.
Thank you, Mayor. I think it's a good idea. The only problem is the way that it's laid out here on this map. It's on the, if you're going from the hotel towards the highway intersection, on that side of the road, you have a pretty steep bank and then it is. Almost wondering if it would be better off to go on the other side.
Yep, Councilor Kirkcaldy.
Yeah, so I can answer that. That was one of my questions today with Ms. Thompson. When I came in, we put on a map and then staff's blowing it up. And actually, to me, the map, she did a great job. To me, I would not worry where the red dotted lines are. That's just an idea where the trail needs to come, not where it's going to go. I believe staff's already aware in regards if we want to talk about the light industrial area where the high bank is with the ditch. Well aware of it, I think it was just to get this map in front of us. So when I talked to Ms. Thompson, that's not where the trail's gonna go. They're gonna use, they're gonna use their ideas and realize that it's not gonna work, there's not enough room for it anyways. So there is gonna have to where it crosses over and comes down somewhere else. I think that's up to staff, but I had the same concerns, Councilor Lehman, and staff was already on it.
Yeah, this is just generally showing the gaps. Okay, Councillor Kirby, did you have?
Yeah, thank you, Mayor Bertrand. On that, walking trail expansion, has just an idea coming to me is where the mountain bike trail that we have right now, that is on just kind of where the arrow sits, is cutting across that onto the other side, which would connect us into our pond area, that we could, take away having to deal with the Ministry of Transportation on the highway and future development there. And I think cutting through there kind of ties into everything we've already started with that interpretive trail.
That's a pretty good idea, Councillor, and that mountain bike trail was an initiative by a former resident. Great initiative, but not built to spec, really built for his own personal use, to be honest. And that's a really good idea. Councillor Majinski.
Yeah, I'm really glad Councilor Kirby brought that forward, because I had some concerns there with the mountain bike trail is one, and that has to be addressed, and hopefully here on meeting can look at that and bring some money in to get that up to snuff, and being able to be close by that pond, which is going to be coming up later on in the agenda, as well as our interpretive trail. So if we can knock out all three of those in one spot and stay away from the highways, I think that's a great spot, and it's nicely treated, and it's kind of secluded as well. So if we can look at that part of it, then I'm more than happy to support all of this going forward.
Absolutely. Councillor Howland and Norbury.
Yeah, so I commend Councillor Krakowka for taking this on and trying to come up with some plan and a bit of a layout. This is kind of his interpretation. He came in and did it, so kudos to him. But I echo what Councillor Kirby was saying. I think that area in through the walking path and the interpretive trail, which is also lit, already has streetlights down in there. It's underutilized by the people in the community who don't even know it's there. If you wanted to run on a paved trail, we completed the loop. We completed the paved trail in the last couple of years. You come down and you run down past the inn and past the tags or whatever it is now, what they call it?
Chevron.
Not tags. The Chevron, right? You come down, but we put a walking path in there, one right by the water treatment center, new path out here. You come all the way down, you go down past the Chinese housing development, and you can do that loop and you can stay on paved the whole time. When we get out, we deal with MOT. We know what that's going to take. Look what happened when we wanted to put up solar panels and for our signs. All of a sudden our costs go through the roof because now we got engineering, we got to do this, we got to do that. That's a steep bank down there as well. That's going to, to just put her down beside the highway, which the power poles are on that side of the highway as well. We're going to run into a lot of issues. I think we can kill two birds with one stone here by deciding what we want to do there through that area and come out by the Chinese housing development might be a better route. And then the north section that leads us down to I guess down to Duso Park or Monkman Park down there. Don't really agree with that either. To me, it doesn't make a whole pile of sense to put that area in out there. There may be some thought behind it for people walking in and out of the community, but to me, it's more of a rural setting out there anyways, and I don't think that area needs to be done until we know what we're doing with the area that First Nation band has applied for, and we have land in as well. There might be something done in there at that time, so I think that portion should wait at this time.
Councillor Krakowka.
Yeah, so the reason I added
Sorry.
the approximate 525 meter Councilor House unit, and the concept there was to come right from the edge of Monkman, entry into Monkman RV Park. The thought was there, the reason I added that part is for when visitors do come to Tumble Ridge, or family comes and they're staying at the campground to visit, and truly they're able to access a walk trail right across from the campground and actually connects them to all of Tumble Ridge, not just the downtown core, but to everything. So whether they're here to visit family, they can walk right from there. It's not muddy, it's not anything, and it's safer. So that was the idea. I mean, I'm not saying it's a have to be done, but that was the idea there, was to give that option to people that are staying at the Moncton RV Park to be able to jump right onto the trail system. It doesn't actually go past the Moncton RV Park entrance. It starts right there. That's probably the idea.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Norbury?
Thank you, Mayor Bertrand. Yeah, I'll speak to what Councillor McCullough was talking about first in that. I think that is a good spot to still have a walking track for what he's mentioning in that it's a paved pedestrian multi-use park that you don't need to worry about ATVs and other motorized vehicles on, in which currently, if you do walk from the RV park, you're walking along an ATV trail. I mean, I run along it 3 times a week. And I've come into contact with ATVs. You know, everyone knows whipping by, knows going crazy, but you know, I'm a local. I know the risk that I'm taking being on there, and I'm an individual. I'm not a family of like 3 or 4, right? So having a designated spot for our visitors, I think, is a good idea, especially if we're putting money into that area. Moving forward, we're telling people to come in. I think we need to be a little responsible and saying, here's how you get downtown, and here is a safe path to do so. And then the other part we're talking about, the 2,000 meters, we're talking about incorporating the interpretive trail. Right? That's a challenging trail to hike. Like I've heard people say, scolding us, me district, it's too steep. Like people can't adequately hike in there, let alone going in there casually running or mountain biking. So Councillor Kirby and Jinsky are talking about adjusting the trail to utilize. Are you thinking like going behind that that industrial area there, rather than go along the road?
The commercial
The
park?
commercial park, thank you. Because I mean, like the downhill again, like that's, I don't think my thought is for the average recreational user. Right? Like you can't tell people to go down the hill in behind there on their bikes or while they're running or whatever, because it's pretty up and down, right? Like it's pretty steep. Right? So I'd like a little more clarity there. I'm curious.
Good points, Councillor. Councillor Majinski?
Thank you, Mayor Bertrand. If I may speak on part of that, I've actually hiked around in there quite a bit, just because of the biking and that. And if we do go on the backside, it would make a good access point to where the steep section of the interpretive trail is. So you can have a reroute there. Because where the interpretive trail cuts down back towards the dock, if that trail continued to go straight, you would have gotten down to a lot lower side of the bench of that whole ridge. So, and I've always wondered why they didn't do that, because they did clear out there to probably move the machinery in and out, but they didn't continue that way, and I thought they should have. Instead, they put stairs down, right down to the dock. So I think if we did put in a trail there, we could utilize that as an easier way down instead of, so it would definitely work, and we could definitely look at that option.
Absolutely. Okay, shall we move on? I think we have, Councillor Kirkhalka.
Yeah, sir. I'd just like to, I mean, I don't need more clarity, but my concept in regards to coming down Moncton, up the highway and then back onto Mackenzie, most of it be lit along the highway by the streetlights that were actually by a resident that went out and solicited BC Hydro to put those light poles in due to when she jogged in there and it was dark and safety concerns with animals or whatever. My concern with going up and through the bush and through over there, we have an interpreter that was partnered with the district and community forest. And I understand there's something further on in regards to the pond, and I think that those are great options and should be left alone and have their own thing. I think we should get in the MOT. I believe we actually have a right of way along the highway. So to me, I know it shows it right against the highway. Again, I think this map is, thanks staff for doing it. There is going to be movement there. And I honestly think it should be the loop that is on the map. I understand what the rest of the council is saying about coming up. There's a hill or ATV trail that people use that come out right at the corner of Southgate and Monkman. Again, ATV trail. People are using that to get through town and stuff. And I think it's for the average person to be on these trailways. These are gonna be more flatter, whether it's for young kids on their scooters and stuff. And it still would go by the existing jump track, whatever we call it. But I think those options, the jump track, the possible fishing hole that'll come up in discussion, the turpin trail, those are other options for other people. Not everybody wants to walk through the bush with their kids, whether it be due to animals. And yeah, can there be animals on the highway? Sure. We also get people driving down the highway. There's a bit more, I would say, safety. And the reason I say that, there was other concern about bringing the trail that ends at Monkman RV Park all the way through to attach to the golf course road and then come back up. I had a concern there, and that was due to safety. Very few people, there's no vehicles driving by. This one here, there's people driving by all the time. I mean, people's wives are out there. I mean, Councillor Howe, you speak to it. I mean, I know your family uses the walk past the trailways a lot. I think we need to reach out to those people that are using it and ask their aspect of it, instead of thinking that we can add it to these other projects that people have done.
Yeah, I agree with you, Councillor. I think those are two separate, the whole point of the paved trail is for accessibility and ease of access, and level is very important in that. The interpretive trail definitely is steep. I've had experience there, as well as the jump trail. It's a pretty good grade going down, so those really should be two separated than this paved one. Councillor Norbury?
Thank you, Mayor, for attention. Yeah, I'll pick the dead horse. But for my thoughts, maybe I'm a little biased because I am a user that uses this trail, so I speak a little passionately about it. Thank Council for bringing it forward. When we're looking at projects, do we build it and hope that they will come, or do you build something for the current we know people are using anyways? Right? I can speak to. I absolutely know people are using this 2,000 meters regularly. I mean, I see them. I see their footprints on the road because I'm looking down from the tire. And we have that is the triathlon route that we run every year, and we have people coming from out of town to run that as well. Right? So for me, the reason why this is so attractive is that we are enhancing an area that has already been used versus guessing to maybe they'll want to come from the interpretive trail, maybe they will. But there are people that are already using it, and they would gain immediate benefit from this change.
I agree. Councillor Kirby?
Thank you, Mayor Bertrand. I am against the highway portion of this project. Up and to the highway on either sides and the 525 meters, I am for. I think that people are using the highway already. It's already paved. If we can put some signage or paint on the shoulder like a bike sign or a walking sign, that is enough. I think that it will be just one of those projects that's never ending with MLT. And I think, I would vote against that one portion.
Okay. Councillor Howe?
And the elephant in the room here is $526,000 just to build it, right? Hopefully it doesn't go cost overruns like the 30% on the rec center bathrooms. But $526,000 is $500,000 towards something that you could use at the community center, indoor running track, right? Something that more people can use. If you still want to walk the path, you can still walk it. It's still there. You don't have to spend $500,000 to walk out there. It's already there the way that it is. What if we took $500,000 and put it towards indoor running track?
I think two separate items completely. Councillor Majinski?
Thank you, Mayor Bertrand.
We are.
The only concern, or what we should take into consideration, is where we're crossing the highway or the roads. That's the only thing that I would have a concern if we're going down towards the highway, is where the crossing is. It's going to be at that yield sign. There's multiple entrances in and 2 exits out on that intersection, so that has to be taken into consideration, as well as the ATVs that are crossing there, and they're going to be set back in as well. So, but otherwise, I would like to see this project get up off the ground this year and people to enjoy it first.
Absolutely. Councillor Norbury?
You made the comment, a walking track and these are two complete, or can be two separate issues. We don't need to choose between one or the other. I would support both.
Okay, thank you. Any other comments about the perimeter trail development? Councillor Kirby?
Mayor Bertrand, or if we're voting on this tonight in its entirety, can we change it to phases? Where the highway portion would be the final phase, so that we can look into it? Because I'd like to know what that would cost itself, so we've got it all lumped into one sum. Because I would vote against this project just with that portion in it.
Councillor Kirkowka.
Thank you. Yeah, and I see Councilor Kirby's comments in regards to use the highway. I'm not saying that's not bad. It comes down to safety, but I would support that where we, we do the I don't want to see us do it all in 2021 anyways. I was looking to see maybe we could get support for half of it. Now, don't get me wrong, if we were to budget or put in the capital budget $250,000, staff was able to access that grant and get that could finish the project in year one. But I do think we should have, at least allow staff time to come back in regards to along the highway. There could be concern. And I'm going to be honest, I asked that question today. Have we reached out to highways? Have we found any of that out? They have. And I don't blame them for not going forward without council having this debate and knowing that this is our wish as a whole. So, they might come back to that's undoable for us anyways, and we would have to, maybe cut up in behind the light. Who knows? I just think, I don't really want to see part of it budgeted for it and hope they get the grant. And it's actually, it's a 50-50 thing, 50% contributed by the taxpayer and 50% from a grant. And it solves our problem with the trail. Just my.
Okay. So I'll make a motion to add the perimeter trail development project to the 2021 budget for a budget of $276,526. Seconder, Councillor Kirkowka. Discussion? Councillor Kirkowka.
I guess I don't want to amend it, but if staff could just realize that I think I support Council Kirby in there. If we're going to do some of it or 50% of it and get the grant, obviously do it all. But if we can get some clarity in regards to the highway from them, just if that staff can take that away, I think that solves, I guess, some questions from some council.
Yeah, I think there's definitely going to be a need to be a follow-up report on this. I don't think, we have a general idea of where we want this, but I think there's a lot more details to be worked out. So I think if staff, Ms. Thompson, if staff could get to gather some more information in regards to that and bring it back at another time. Councillor Norbury.
Thank you, Mayor Bertrand. Just for a little bit of clarification, the 276, that number was chosen so that we can get everything but the highways completed, or just so we can have a budget number to jump off with?
That's subtracted from the 250,000 possible grant. So if the grant is successful, then we have the full budget of 5.6. Councillor Howell.
I'm against this at this time. I think our track record with asphalt at the district of Tumble Ridge is fantastic. Some of these new paths that we put in and widened out, they're actually starting to crack off and break, and there's some wash on some of the pathways along Mackenzie Way. So I also seen along Monkman, when they put the paths in, that was left up to staff, and willy-nilly, the path did one of these, and we talked about why didn't it go straight? If it goes straight, it saves more money, and instead, no, we wanted it to look nice, so we did that. And to me, this is a pile of money. I mean, if we could get a grant for it, yeah, fantastic. But I think to fly off the cuff and spend this kind of money on a project like this, where our asphalt hasn't been fantastic in Tumble Ridge, don't forget we've got a lot of bare walks that aren't repaved yet, right? And we didn't want to repave those because we were looking at the costs on it. Like, geez, that's a lot of money. What's going to happen in 20 years when you got to repave this entire walking path and all the bare walks and all this stuff? We keep adding more and more stuff to the district of Tumble Ridge. We're going to have to start adding to the taxes, right? Because you got to maintain this stuff. Like, this stuff is going to have to be, and not only maintained to replace the asphalt, we got to clear the snow off of it, right? So now we got to have more people, more hours. So to me, it's just, I think we should pump our brakes on this and have a little more thought on it. It's a lot of money to outlay, and I can't support it.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Norbury.
Thank you, Mayor Bertrand. My comment goes to Councillor Howe, and I guess the other members of the council who were here in the last term, but from my understanding, when that asphalt trail development that we currently see now, like it came in under budget. So like remember staff wanting to take the initiative to go even farther with it because it was actually under what they thought. So, I mean, this is Class C. It's up plus or minus 30%. But I mean, from what I understand, it is cheaper than what they thought. And they do have the cost estimate here of what it was in 2016. Prices changed, right? I don't think that's enough to say throw doubt to stop it, right?
Yeah. Councillor Kirkowka.
Yeah, I guess my comment would be like, in regards to bear walks, we've actually, my council directive has added that to the ongoing budget of $100,000 a year for staff to start going through the bear walks. And whether it's repair or whatever, but I also think when it comes to bear walks, council needs to decide what we want in regards to bear walks. Do we want some of them left grass? Do we want some of them that are gravel, still gravel? Do we want to pay? That discussion hasn't happened with council. We put in the budget $100,000 for, I think it says walkways, but I believe that's the idea of it, for bear walks. But yeah, we haven't had that discussion what we want to see with our bear walks. And I believe bear walks to me in this trail system that was started by a previous council. I think this is something that finishes it off, and we constantly hold back on doing projects. And I understand Councillor Howe's comment that says, there's the maintenance of it now, snow removal and all this, and I totally agree. And might have maybe start rethinking that, geez, what's that cost? And I don't think we have that cost. What's this added trail system going to cost to the core budget of the district? When it comes to staffing, machine costs, wear and tear on the machine, do we need a second machine? Do we need all that? But I think that's for staff to come back. And I mean, we're going to add to our bear walks. It could be paving, it could be lights on. So there's going to be costs there too. So I fully support the motion. That's all.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Lehman.
Thank you, Mayor. If I remember correctly, the walking trail along South
Southgate.
Southgate, yeah. It came in way over what council wanted to spend, and then it went back for another request for or RFP, and it came back significantly less. So I just want to make sure we get a decent cost for these trails and not just, okay, well, that's what it is. Thank you very much, and we go ahead and do it. I think we still need to watch our dollars and cents, and I know I keep harping on it, but it is taxpayers' money.
Absolutely. Councillor Kirkowka.
So Southgate is all sidewalks. No trail system there, it's a sidewalk. It's a little bit different than what we're talking. There was trail added on Moncton from Bergeron to Southgate, and that was added by budget, over budget or under budget. It was actually budgeted for when there was lots of residents talking how they can't get down there. So I'll put myself on the floor. It was me that put the motion forward to add to the budget, and that budget actually came lower than what they thought, and that's why they added some past Willow, past the school on Moncton, but was never asphalted, which is left as gravel. So again, I think to me, we sit in these chairs and it's listening to, not one resident, not two residents, but multiple. And getting out and speaking to them, or watching it with their own eyes, the amount of people that are using our trail systems, whether it's young kids or middle-aged adults or visitors. And I think this is an asset. We talk about making it our community, more touristy and all this. So this adds accessibility, not only to our big center, but possibly to the jump track if the Mountain Bike Association decides to go down and look at that. Again, I think it's adding more to our community for people that live here, as well as people that come to visit it.
Councillor Norbury.
Thank you, Mayor Bertrand. Councillor Lehman made a great point in the cost differential. The cost differential really was out of town versus local. We had a local person that did that sidewalk for us, and look how cheaply it costs, right? And these types of projects are how we can help our local economy to hopefully get those businesses working, right? Like developing these, I don't know exactly what you call them, but capital project businesses, right? We can get our people to work, And they can undercut all of these guys from Dawson, Chetwynd, Fort St. John, because they don't have to have 3 hours of travel. And if we're looking at how to recover from the low economic climate, these projects can only help us.
Yep, I agree. Councillor Howell, did you have something?
Yeah, and just, I don't want to belabor the point, but when we talk about, yes, if you add paths, it's absolutely going to add value to the community, and it's going to be better for tourism, and all that. Those are all fine and great things to say. But to me, it's the cost of, it's the $500,000 that you're laying out. Is this the best use of $500,000 for taxpayers? I see residents walking, I see kids and bikes and blah, blah, blah. We talk about all these that we see out there. But I also see those people walking up and down Southgate, right? So there is an existing loop that's within town that has less bears around it, and you don't have as much concern, and it's already there. People can do the loop. We completed a loop. Maybe it's not as big as people would like it, but to me, that area out there is a commercial park and an industrial park. That's where you're headed out towards. It's not the most glorious views in Tumbler Ridge going out through that way there. And then you walk to a highway, and you walk down a highway right now. People are still doing it. Yeah, if the trail is up on the bank, absolutely, it's safer up there. But to me, maybe we should just think there's a better use of that money. I think there's a better use of that money. You go out to the residents, and I'd like to put it in perspective for people so they understand how much $500,000 is. That's 50% of the residential taxes that we collect in the community of Tumbler Ridge. 50%. If you said to the people of Tumbler Ridge, we're going to increase your taxes by 50% 1 year so we can have these paths, how many people do you think would want it? We have to put it, I like to put it in perspective, Mayor, and it's my turn to talk right now, so I'm going to finish what I'm saying. That's why I do it, right? I like to put things in perspective so we can think about it rather than just go, geez, we got 26 million in reserves. It's $500,000. Let's do it, right? Think about it in that term.
It is, absolutely, and you're right about that, about perspective, but there also needs to be another perspective that our residential taxes is 10% of our total tax base as well.
Sure.
That's another perspective as well. Councillor Norbury.
Thank you, Mayor Bertrand. To go into a little more perspective, it's $250,000 in pocket. We're looking to get $250,000 in matching funds via grant. Right? So we're taking our money, we're getting 100% return on it. Great investment. We should also look, if we want to talk about our residential taxes, that's an opportunity to talk to our residents about how low our residential taxes are. You talk to anybody in a larger community, we pay an exceptionally low amount of taxes. I mean, we're in a great area in that regard. So I think it's a little unfair to say, well, this $250,000 is a percentage of our taxes, which is already way under what the average is. I have a family in Kamloops that paid $3,000 just not even for their water. Their water's attached. Right, another $2,000 for the water. So I think that does put it into perspective. And it also highlights how our taxes work, in that we don't burden our residents with taxes. They're burdened onto other tax classes, which is a great reason to be in our.
Thank you. Councillor Kirby.
Thank you, Mayor Bertrand. Can you read back your motion, please, so I know if we're...
Yep. Ms. Thompson.
Thank you, Mayor Bertrand. Do you have it? Concerns? Just give us 1 second to
Yep.
find it. Thank you.
Sorry, a lot of typing. I've got.
Just waiting for the exact wording, but
Sorry,
it was to include the perimeter trail development in the 2021 budget for $276,526. So that's the difference from this estimate minus the 250 grant possible.
Okay, so was it include, not pre-approved?
Add the perimeter trail project to 2021 budget for the
76,000. Any other comments, questions before I call the question? All in favor? Opposed? Carried, thank you. Councillor Kirkowka?
The council directs staff to apply for the Healthy Community Initiative grant for this project, the maximum amount of $250,000.
Seconder, Councillor Norbury, discussion? All in favor? Opposed? Carried, thank you. Lighting of existing trails? Councillor Kirkowka, did you want to speak to this?
Yeah, I don't know how much to say on this. I mean, I think the amount's there. I think staff is still waiting for some information to come back from another community that's done some. I just think that, this is something maybe we can maybe talk about in the 2022 budget, or make sure it's added for discussion once they get more of that information back. So it's not to light up all the trailway or all the trailways in Tumblr, like whether it's the new walk path or the old. It's places that is needed, and Councillor Howell's mentioned it a few times, and some of it's along Moncton, but there was talk about maybe seeing if we could piggyback or flip some lights. So I just think some more research needs to be done on it. This number came up from a previous report, and I know talking to Ms. Thompson today that we're still waiting to hear back from another municipality that has done some lighting. So I think we should give it some opportunity.
Absolutely, okay. Town Hall office renovation, Ms. Thompson, did you want to speak to this one? Sorry, just one moment, Councillor Kirkowka.
Yeah, that's actually one of my ideas.
Okay,
So, just talking with our CAO and stuff, and no different than the mayor's office, going in there, having a discussion, and to me, they're not confidential offices fully. So I know I talked to Ms. Thompson, and she thought good idea, so she's done some of her own research, so I think we should hear from her, but it was an idea that not just one office, not just the CAO's office, but to me, the mayor's office is confidential too, and sometimes you gotta care what you're saying in these rooms that the staff.
Councillor Norbury.
Thank you, Member. I support the renovation. As I've spoken to the staff, and like they say, they have to play music so they don't hear what's going on in the mayor's office, right? Like, good for them. But it just shows like there's a little more needed to create confidentiality. And I think yourself, the CAO, you are having conversations that are confidential. I think that confidentiality should be kept.
Okay, thank you. Other comments or questions? Okay, so I'll move that we add the town hall office. Sorry, Councillor Kirby, did you have Councillor Majinski?
Sorry, are we gonna put a price on this, or is it non-budget funds? How's that gonna go through?
The,
And the cost estimate, is there a report coming forward?
the price of 6,500.
Oh, that's to do both.
Both offices, Ms. Thompson, please.
Thank you, Mayor Bertrand, through council. So that is an estimated cost, or a fairly good estimated cost to so many square feet for both offices. And it would just be installing or taking the gyprock down, putting rock salt in, and then putting gyprock back up and painting it. So that was I think that one's a little tighter cost that I was able to achieve.
Councillor.
Okay, so, yeah, it just seemed quite low, and I didn't know if that was just to get the ball rolling on this. Just because, as we know, we're looking at getting quotes and stuff like that, we quite costly. Would that include doors then?
Ms. Thompson? I don't believe so, but Ms. Thompson? No?
Thank you, Mayor Bertrand. That didn't include doors.
Okay, Councillor Kirby?
Thank you, Mayor Bertrand. Doing this town hall office renovation, we have our building envelope. I'm just, is that just exterior, or are we looking at any interior rentals with that? Like, we're not gonna do this and then have to redo it down the road.
Ms. Thompson?
Thank you, Mayor Bertrand. So the town hall envelope that we do have a grant application for is only the exterior. So in CAO and the mayor's office, you would have to take the trim around the windows, replace the windows, and put the trim back up. So they would be replaced with what's currently, what the opening is.
But as far as the building envelope, that report that we're expecting, is that going to include renovations inside as well? Just the outside? Ms. Thompson?
Sorry, thank you, Mayor Bertrand. So the grant application that we put in is only for the exterior.
Right.
We have not done anything yet on the interior of the building. That's coming.
Coming, yes. Okay, thank you. Councillor Majinski?
So if this budget goes over, or if this goes over budget by 10%, $600, will that come back to us, or is there a contingency of a maximum amount, or is this locked in?
Ms. Thompson?
Thank you, Mayor Bertrand, through council. So at this time, it is an estimated cost. We haven't done full detail on everything yet because we didn't know where it's going to go with council, right? So if council chooses to go forward at this time, then we would bring the cost back when we actually get the quotes. It is an estimated cost. I wasn't going to dig very deep into it other than do we go deeper, right? Sorry.
Thank you. Okay, so I'll move that we add the town hall office renovation to the 2021 budget as presented in Schedule B. Seconder? Councillor Majinski, discussion? Councillor Kirkowka?
Yeah. Sorry, I mean, I support it, so don't take me wrong. But when we go through these next items, if we don't agree that we can Schedule A, can we just make motions to take them off and then approve Schedule A?
Yeah, we can do it that way or go each one. You know, lighting of existing trails, you were mentioning that information is needed, so, you know, either way. Councillor?
Yeah, so I mean, I plan on removing that one. That's why I didn't make a motion to approve it. I just thought, like, in the recommendation from staff is to approve Schedule A as submitted. I mean, obviously, just like we did previously, we removed some of the ones that we didn't like.
Yep.
It might speak for itself.
We certainly can, yep. Councillor Kirby?
Thank you, Mayor Bertrand. Are those the only two areas that we are worried about the sound? Like we have confidential meetings in this room and possibly in the conference room. Are we just narrowing it down because this town hall has been running for many years without having a sound barrier? This is.
Good point. Yep. Ms. Thompson, would you see the need for the chambers or the committee room to be soundproof as well?
Thank you, Mayor Bertrand. I haven't actually heard anything for the two rooms. The only thing I would do is I would look at adding, I wouldn't necessarily replace the door, but I would look at adding something along the bottom of them for, you know, because there is quite a bit of room underneath the doors. That would be the only thing I would look at this time because they are wooden doors, so there's not a lot of sound that does get through them.
Thank you. So I guess we'll deal with this motion for the town hall and then through the rest, and want to take out of Schedule A, then that's what we'll do. So we'll call the question on the motion. All in favor? Opposed? Carried. Thank you. Report on expansion of gym facility. Councillor Howe, did you want to speak to this?
Yeah, basically it's just an idea here to, you know, we were talking about needing childcare spaces. We weren't successful with the grants that we've applied for so far. And I think the need is there for a larger gym as well. So I thought maybe if we ask staff to look at, is there an area where you could move the gym within the community center? Or could we build an area off the side of the community center? Or do something with swapping the gym with the youth center and make the area by the youth center bigger, so that could have a larger gym, and it's kind of a more easier access to the parking lot, and the kids are more in the center of the community center. Just some ideas around it. It's a well-used thing in the community center. Active living is what we're trying to support in the community, and if we have some way of maybe making the gym a little bit better for our residents, I just wondered if it's worth our time and staff time to look at doing anything with it.
Well, I absolutely agree. I think it's a great idea. Councillor Norbury.
Thank you, Mayor Bertrand, and thank you, Councillor Howe, for bringing this one up, because this is something I've been talking about for a while, and I think it's something a little grander, so I apologize if I'm shooting for the moon here, but I've spoken with some people from, out of province in Ontario, and they've talked about these, sort of like these massive white marshmallow type buildings, like they're called
Sprungs?
maybe. Like they say that like they last 20, 30 years. They can be quite large. And we have an opportunity here to look at other options for winter activities. I've been saying for a while, it's great. This community has a lot for kids. When it comes to winter, kind of stuck with ice activities at the pool. Right? It would be that nice to have another alternative. We can encompass some sort of walking track and a soccer field in there. And because the soccer season is so short, we take a soccer field surrounded by a track. We get a little bit off of here for the gym. If we're looking at some, what I was told, we could potentially get this done for a couple $1 million. Right? Like, we're not talking $30 million for a whole new building, but when we're talking about $7 million in surpluses, this is something that there's opportunities here. I don't think we should just limit ourselves to let's have something attached to the community center. Look at some real options, because we might not look again at this for a while.
Okay. Councilor Majinski?
Thank you, Mayor Bertrand. I like this idea of having a new area to build for the gym. The reason being is, space for one. It would free up space for the childcare space, which we'll eventually need to get. And the main reason I like this is if we could have a separate entrance to a gym that has a key card to it, so that people can use it whenever they like. We could still have it locked out at certain hours of the evening or whatever, but this way you don't have to rely on community center staff to open the door for you at 5 in the morning when you're shivering outside of your gym gear trying to get in, and sometimes they're late or whatever, right? So this would also cater to our shift workers. It's a shift working community, so we have guys that are working all night, and then on the days off, they're not transitioning right away. Maybe they want to go to the gym in the middle of the night. So something like that, I think, would help cater to that. So if that was a possibility to get into, is having a separate entrance or a key card to get in. And there might be security issues, but that's why we would have cameras, and we can even have it blocked out, and those keys can be traceable too. So that's just one of my things, and I think whichever way we go with this, whether it's an expansion or a whole new purpose-built building for the gym, and then frees up other space. And then I know further on we'll talk about the, what is it here, sorry. I'll get back to it, sorry. I won't ramble on too long here about the curling rink. But there is a couple things that tie in well with that. So.
Okay, thank you. Councilor Hall?
Yeah, and what Councilor Norbury is talking about, I'm not against that either. We're talking $45,000 for a report on options. So if we're spending $45,000 for somebody to give us some options on what we can do with the community center, I think that's probably a pretty easy option that Councilor Norbury has brought forward. They could peel out and they could say, hey, and you could do all this in the rec center, or for this price, you could build this building that is over top where the tennis courts are, or something like that. Like, I'm totally not against that either. And I think for $45,000, we should be able to get that done in that type of report. I would think.
Yeah, I would hope.
Right?
I would certainly hope so. Same similar report that we had in expanding the daycare with options too. Councilor Howe?
And I just wanted to throw out a bunch of ideas for staff to think about and wrap their head around it, so they have an idea where we're coming from. Like the area where the generator sits, the backup generator for the community center, that area is next to the hockey rink. There's a large area in there where if it was tied into the circle parking lot, you could have an area on that side of the community center. You could do it on the other side of the community center where the curling rink is. Below of it, was originally set up as a storage area for the decking that came out of the curling rink for when they would put it on top of the ice. That's what that was originally built for. Then it's turned into the community center wood shop. But somehow either above of that or get rid of that and build something new on that side of the community center. You may be able to tie in, we talked about a rock climbing wall in the community center. If you're building it up that high, you may be able to tie something like that into there. So just options, ideas, and if it's totally
off by the high school or something, I'm good with that too. Let's just start throwing the ideas around, and maybe 4 or 5 years we might have something like this.
Councillor Kirby?
Thank you, Mayor Bertrand. At this time, I'm going to be voting against this report on the gym, just because we haven't finalized what's happening with the daycare grant, and if we're rewriting that grant. Also, it sounds like council is very undecided about what we'd like to see in the future. We've had a report of $45,000 on the walking track that was going above the curling rink that we couldn't see through. I think at this point, there's also the option if somebody wants to build a gym, a standalone business, that is also an opportunity that could be brought into town. So at this point, I'll be voting against.
Councillor Hall?
Yeah, I agree. You gotta, with the part that you said, somebody could come in and put a gym in town. Yeah, they could, but that one has been established in the community for 40 years. Like it has expanded over the years as well. It used to be much smaller than what it was, and has gotten to the point where they're outgrowing themselves now. And you're right. We are very undecided on it, but this is the initial thought process on it, to throw it out there and get people talking about it, get the community talking about it. And is it wanted? Is it needed? As for childcare spaces, it's been blatantly clear to me in here, we need more childcare spaces. We absolutely need them. So why don't we kill 2 birds with 1 stone? If something should change and we get the childcare grant, we build a standalone building over there, maybe that totally changes what we want to do with the gym. But maybe it never does. Maybe it never comes through. Maybe the government never gives us any money to do any more childcare spaces. But we got to do it on our own. This is, to me, is the right way to do it, is to expand into the gym. So to me, you kill 2 birds with 1 stone here.
Yeah, I agree. Councillor Kirby, then Majinski.
I'm good, thank you.
Councillor Majinski?
Thank you, Member Trent. And on the topic of the childcare spaces and where the gym is located, currently, if you want to have the children leave the daycare, they have to go outside to get back into the building. So if we have where the gym is now, that would be their easy access point back into the community center. They wouldn't have to go outside and get bundled up to go up to 30 feet. So I think this would be very, very helpful and advantageous.
Okay. Does anyone want to put a motion forward to remove any of the items that we've spoken about so far? Councillor Kirkowka?
Yeah, I'd like to remove the lighting of the existing trails.
Seconder? Councillor Kirby? Comments? Councillor Kirkowka?
Yeah, to me, if we don't lose the traction of this, come back in 2022 discussion for budget, I just think we're a little early on it.
Councillor Kirby?
Thank you, Mayor Bertrand. Do we know when we're reapplying for the daycare spaces grant?
Ms. Thompson?
Thank you, Member Bertrand, to the council. So at this time, staff has been directed to come back with ideas and where we're going with it. I'm not sure when the next grant application for the daycare is out. I don't think there's anything currently out there. Usually they come out in the fall, and then they did a second intake last year. So usually it's the fall that we get the grant application.
Thank you. Councillor Kirby?
I would like to,
We still have a motion on the floor, sorry. All in favor?
which is this, on the lights?
Yeah. Opposed, carried. Thank you. Councillor Kirby?
Thank you, Mayor Bertrand. I would like to put a motion to remove the report on expansion of gym facility and defer to a later date.
Seconder? Councillor Kirkowka? Discussion? Councillor Kirkowka?
Yeah, I don't support it. I think it's about time, and it says in here, I'm not sure whose wording that is, but, it is something we make money at. I guess it's not about just making money, but, the amount of people that are using the gym, we've seen it with COVID. We expanded the gym into the curling rink because we had so many people that wanted to use it. I think it needs to be left in there and we get some ideas back from staff. Whether it's the 10 concept that Councilor Overy was talking about or whatever it may be, I think it's an option to look at.
Thank you. Councillor Kirby?
Thank you, Mayor Bertrand. At this time, our facility is only seeing 6 people use it per hour. I don't see a real influx in our population at this time to support an increase to the gym facility. And I think that deferring it to later is still a better option. than going ahead with a $45,000 report right now.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Norbury?
Thank you, Mayor Bertrand. You know, I think we need to be looking past COVID and planning for success. Pre-COVID, it's pretty darn busy in there, and speaking with other gym members. It's usable, but not overly functional. We have so much potential. We have a lot of active members in our community that would love to see something expanded. And yeah, still like that attention idea. Thanks, Councilor.
Okay, thank you. I will speak against this motion. I think it is a good idea to get a report on this. We have talked about possible options for the daycare. Still haven't lost that thought, but you know, whatever happens with the daycare, there was a reactive action going to happen with the gym that we haven't planned for or prepared for. So I think getting this report with options for the gym to coincide with options for the daycare is definitely going to be beneficial. So against this. Councillor Majinski?
With the daycare, we had the report and it showed in there different building ideas and expansions, correct?
For the daycare, yeah.
Could we utilize those as a possible gym expansion? So if we're gonna be using urban systems, they probably have these reports, they have all of our design layouts already. They could probably use it. I don't know if it would come up to the $45,000 mark, so I think we're gonna be under budget there.
Those are possible options as well. There was some different renovations to add on to the community center as well, yeah. Councillor Howe?
No, and the only other thing that I think about, again, with the gym is the curling rink. Like, we did expand into the curling rink and utilized it. And I know it's an unpopular thing with curlers in the community of Tumbler Ridge, but I'd love to know, what is our utilization of the curling rink? The curling rink ice is out right now. They just pulled the curling rink ice out. And I was told by people down there was 4 people that were using it during COVID times. There was 1 family and 1 other person that were using the curling rink. And the rec center decided, well, it's not enough use, they're going to pull it out. I know it's just a wild thought, just throwing it out there. We wouldn't have to do anything if we moved the gym into where the curling rink is. And, you know, it's a thought. I know we had talked about it years ago, but it was about a $100,000 repair to the piping underneath the curling rink. And we threw around the idea, do we really want to spend that kind of money? Is there enough curlers to support it? And then curling came on strong. They had a real strong year, and then it kind of died off again. So, I don't know, it's just another thought to throw out there for people to think about.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Kirkowka?
Yeah, so I think curling's still strong at Tumbler Ridge. I think COVID is the concern. They're following the rules from BC curling, and that is absolutely no curling. So why not remove the ice now instead of paying to have the ice in there and frozen? So that's my understanding. I mean, I can't speak for staff, but I would assume that's why the ice has been removed from the curling rink, is because they're following BC curling, which there's no curling.
Councillor Lehman?
Councillor Percoco is correct. We follow Girl Canada, Girl BC rules, and they said, no more curling, you're allowed one-on-one, and that's all. So we decided that there wasn't enough interest in doing that, so there's no use having the ice to take it out.
Thank you. Councillor Kirby?
Thank you, Mayor Bertrand. I think I might be just repeating myself here, but it's not that the gym isn't an asset to the community and that it's well used. I am against the $45,000 for the report as it sits right now. We do, like Councillor Majinski said, we do have plans that were developed when we were looking at daycare. So then if, you know, talking about moving it, you know, moving and building a standalone gym, that is something I would not be against, but how you said moving it around in the community center, this report still, I think, is putting the cart before the horse, because if daycare spaces is still one of our top priorities, we're maybe just ahead of ourselves. That's why I might be against this.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Norbury?
Thank you, Mayor Bertrand. On the curling rink, I think making big decisions during COVID time is not a good idea. About talking about taking over the curling rink, you know, in the time of a pandemic, it's a little reactive, right? Like, as soon as we get everything back up and running, potentially curling's going to jump back in a big way, and we need to plan. I think we need to plan for success, not failure. We need to expect all these things to come back full bore.
Councillor Kirkowka?
Yeah, so just a comment back to Councilor Curtin regarding the daycare spaces. I don't think this council is not against the daycare or the daycare spaces that we know that is needed or will be needed in the community. I think by getting this report back and some ideas, to me, no disrespect staff, threw a number there, this is what their estimate is for this report, maybe because way back in their budget, there's great options to move the gym, build a standalone, whatever it may be. That was no different than when we talked about the daycare and possibly building its own. The gym was gonna take over the daycare space, so now it's just vice versa. I mean, I believe if we were to remove the gym, I'm not sure how many spaces are gained there, but I would believe that we could still apply for a grant to the government because we're adding daycare spaces. It doesn't have to be a standalone to do that. So I won't support the motion to take this out. I think it's an asset we need in our community.
Okay, thank you. Any other final comments? Call the question, all in favor? Opposed? Defeated.
Sorry, in favor to remove, remove. Sorry, I fell asleep there.
Nope. Defeated, thank you. Conversion of meeting rooms to offices. Councillor Howe, do you want to speak to this?
Yeah, it's just, we talked about the meeting room or the needing more office space and doing a $250,000 renovation to the front offices. This is an idea, it's a thought. What if we looked at just putting offices in 1 and 2? Do we really need this many meeting rooms in Tumbler Ridge? Has the community grown that much? We have added a fantastic meeting room underneath the Visitor Information Center that people can utilize. We've got 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5 over there. This one over here, there's other places in the community. We bought the Willow Hall. There's another area that you can utilize. So we've purchased all these extra areas to have meeting rooms and areas to go. So why not maybe utilize that for office space for the community center rather than spending $250,000? And hopefully this isn't $80,000 over budget, 30% over budget. We're up to $350,000 for our renovation to the front desk. So to me, the history of what has happened in the previous renovations in there leaves me a little uncertain that what we're going to get out of that $250,000 renovation is going to be worth it. So here's an option. What if we looked at just doing this rather than totally changing the front desk? Maybe it needs a little tweak, a $30,000 tweak, but just an idea.
Thank you. Councillor Norbury.
Thank you, Mayor Bertrand. So personally, I think this is one of the ones that we can remove. So I'd like a little more clarification on Councillor Howe's understanding. Like you make these claims that we could save money. Well, how are we going to save money by having people walk across the hallway to talk with their superiors? And you make comments that they're not being utilized. Can you talk to how much they're being utilized? Because, talking with staff over there, they don't have enough room to operate as their rooms 4 and 5 and 3, right? And I see people in room 1 all the time. So I'm kind of curious as to his rationale and how it would save money. And if he can go into a little more detail in his explanation of how you utilize room 1 and 2 are.
Councillor Howe.
Sure, yeah. My time in the community center in the last 40 years that I've lived here, 1 and 2 get used a little bit. 3 was utilized for a long time for the arts group. They were storing their stuff in the room 3 wasn't being utilized the whole time. Room 2 wasn't being utilized the whole time. Then we bought all these extra areas in town and produced other areas. The community didn't grow any in that time. We're still 2,500 to 2,800 people. But we've got all of Willow Hall that's underutilized. We've got the basement of the Vic Center that's underutilized. So as an opportunity to not spend $250,000 to renovate the same space that we have there, it's not going to get any bigger. It's the same space. This creates more space. It at least buys you the time. We could just take room 1, or take room 2, split it in half or in a third, or whatever you needed to do, just as an idea to get the people out of there. Yeah, you got to walk across the hallway, or geez, you can pick up your phone or send an email like everybody else does. We're not all in the same building here. District Works is out there, the community center's over here, these people are in this building. They don't walk over here to deal with something, they pick up the phone and call somebody. I just think that maybe it's an option for a cheaper way of doing it, or at least to buy some time till somebody has a chance to look through that building to say, do we really need to do this? Just an idea for council to consider rather than spending $250,000.
Thank you. Councillor Norbury.
Thank you, Mayor Bertrand. So for something like this, I would prefer to see it coming from staff. As staff are the people that are in the building that are utilizing it. Councillor Howe, you say 40 years. Well, the last 2 years, you should see the amount of work that's going on in those rooms right now. So I think if this is something that staff is asking for, I'd support it. But at this moment in time, this is just from a counselor making these speculations. I need to hear from staff, and I think until that time, from what I understand, their needs were going to be met with this renovation in the front block.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Kirkowka.
Just a comment I'll make, if it came from staff, I could vote in favor of it. Sometimes, no disrespect to staff, sometimes it's ideas that come, or debating that comes from up at this area that makes staff think of those ideas. So sometimes staff, again, no disrespect to staff, but they want the gold spoon. We come up with an idea, they want to get the silver spoon. And this could be exactly that. I mean, I was reading more into it, listening to the debate between the two of you and how much rooms are used and everything else. Yeah, I think room runs use lots, but it doesn't mean they can't now move that over into the bottom of the big center as the office space for people's meetings and not-for-profit groups meetings. But sometimes staff don't come up with the idea, it comes from us. And sometimes it's not a bad idea. I'm trying to get my hands around the concept of having office spaces over there. I mean, it's how you support the concept of getting a report back, those who work for staffing at this time and stuff like that. But sometimes staff, again, and there's no disrespect to it, but sometimes it's the idea that comes from this council, or ideas in our debates, that make staff come back with a report later on and say, hey, this is great, let's move forward with it. I mean, right now, in the community center, the old chamber office was used for an office space by staff, which they would either pick up phone or email, or they would have to walk up to the front desk as well. It's almost the same distance. I guess that's, I don't know. I get what you're saying, Councilor Weaver, just on those comments.
Councillor Lehman.
Thank you, Mayor. A couple of things. I'm not sure how many offices we need in the rec center, because if every person over there that is working over there needs an office, then there's obviously a problem with staffing. And this is probably one of the most commented thing that I get about the district is the amount of staff in the rec center. And it's getting to the point where I'm really getting a little bit frustrated because I hear it over and over again. So I think we make better use of the space that we have instead of creating more and more space and then creating more and more positions. And I think we need, we need to look at what's going on over there, I think is what it is. And maybe just streamline things a little bit. I don't know. I don't think we need any more offices.
Councillor Majinski.
Thank you, Mayor Bertrand. What if we did a trial run? Just put in a couple of desks in there and have the staff, or ask them, see if they would be open to the idea. Before we start doing renovations and getting these reports and talk to the staff over there and with the staff here and see if that might be a viable option and see what they think of it instead of converting them right away. It doesn't have to be done overnight, and this is just an option that's been thrown out there, and I think we should definitely look into it.
Ms. Thompson, has there been any discussion amongst staff in regards to this?
Thank you, Mayor Bertrand. At this time, no, staff has not had any discussions regarding projects that have been put forward.
Thank you. Councillor Norbury.
Hey, Mayor Bertrand, that was the reason why I had my hand up. But at this point in time, I'd like to make a motion to remove the conversion of meeting rooms to office from Schedule A.
Seconder. I'll second it. Discussion. Councillor Howe.
Yeah, and so this was intended to be a report on renovations. This was not intended to, let's do $15,000 of renovations, and your idea may be exactly what comes out of it. I didn't realize it was gonna cost $15,000 for a report out of this. It was kind of like, and staff look at the costs and bring them, because they said to us, do you have any ideas, right? That's what the email said, do you have any? So I threw out some ideas here. And the idea is that, what could we do this? Like, And then we get a cost of, well, $15,000. And I understand that, you know, they get it at the last minute, they've got to come up with something, let's put an earmark or a spot to it and see how much it can get done for. But the thought is it's in their playbook now, like, could you do something with this? And back to what Councillor Lehman was saying, I don't want any more offices over there either, but I certainly don't want to spend $250,000 to put more offices in there. So this is why I'm saying that maybe we can hold that $250,000 back, which is still in budget discussions, and we could direct staff in this direction. Would this give you what you need to get through this hurdle in time? Maybe it doesn't. Maybe staff comes back and says, no, the $250,000 renovation is the absolute thing we need. Room 1 is overutilized, room 2 is too much, the Vic doesn't have any room. Maybe they come back and say that to us and we get the information from the report. Like Councillor Norbury says, I don't like to hear it from a councillor, I like to hear it from staff. Here's the idea, let staff run with it. And that's what I'd like to see as well. I mean, that's what the idea of a report was. I didn't realize it'd be 15 grand for that report.
Oh, I understand. Councillor Norbury.
Thank you, Member Bertrand. I'm in favor of removing it, as my motion is. And I think it's ridiculous that we're trying to use this as something to stop an already approved project.
Not approved.
Council has debated it over and over again. We put it in our last capital project to make the renovations. It's already been approved, and you're trying to stop the project by clouding with this. I think that's ridiculous. And this is something staff needs. I would support it if you brought it forward to us, but not for $15,000.
Okay, thank you. I'm going to call the question. All in favor? Opposed? Carried, thank you. I'm going to call a 10-minute recess, please.
So the budget's not approved yet. Budget is not done now.
We've already proved that
The budget's not done. We're still in budget debate. So if we come in and all of a sudden taxpayers say, we're not giving you $10 million, and we now got to cut stuff out of the budget, that's where we start cutting. So it's not done. It's been approved by council at one point. So if I come in with an idea and we can say, Jesus, what do you guys think? Can we save some money here on this? Right? Yeah, I absolutely. Okay. I'm not saying anything that's not wrong, but just don't swear is what you're saying. But it's, you know, that's
But
what.
for all intents and purposes, it's already been approved, right? So like you're in an open meeting, you're arguing against like the will of council,
But
right?
you and I distinctly disagree on that point. Budget is not done. Budget is not done until the very last day. It's gonna say, everything is incorporated and we're done. Because what if we get our tax rates in, right? And then we say, Jesus, we're actually gonna spend more money. We've got so much stuff budgeted, we're gonna spend more money than what we are actually bringing in. Do we wanna go in deficit this year, guys? And then we say, geez, no, we don't wanna go in deficit. Where do we start cutting? So that's when things would change, right?
You're tainting two different issues, right? Like when if it's just about the offices, I understand, but when you taint, I'm trying to remember the codes that we're trying to do like that. To me, raises a huge red flag in that. What does this have to do with that, right? And that gets
Because
like,
yeah.
well, yes, what you're saying is the budget isn't done. That doesn't have anything to do with this, but if you're saying this is only to stop that other project,
It's not to stop it, it's to think about, do we have to spend that kind of money? You guys are all in support of spending it. So during budget debate, I can come in and say, listen, here's another idea. And that's all I'm looking at right now. You might not, you guys got 6 out of 7 for that. I was the only one voted against the renovations of the front desk. But if somebody comes in with an idea and say, staff goes, we never thought of that. We never thought of that, and maybe that would work. Maybe we could come back in and say, we don't need to spend that money. We can still do it, it'll be nice, and we'll have a fancy front end. And that's the idea there. I'm not trying to take it off.
don't you think it's like this time to take that shot has already been passed, right? Like, I understand.
Because I didn't think of that. I didn't come up with that idea until now, like not now, but like a week ago, right? Because I was so against it. Like sometimes things can happen in council like that. I'm like, there's no way that's gonna pass. And then it comes in, it goes 6 out of 7, and I'm not prepared. I'm like, what? How can that happen? How can we spend that kind of
I'm
money?
with you too, but then, you know what I do? I mean, I just get upset about it, and I just move on, and I think, you know what? Maybe that isn't what, maybe that vision I have is not what.
Yep.
And, you know,
And I think like that, and, you know, there's certain, as I say, I get frustrated that I can't express my point because it just seems so right to me, but I can't express it to get anybody else to go with me, so then it's getting stuck on me. And so then when I come with an idea like that, it's like, yeah, don't, and you're entitled to your opinion to say, I'm trying to take that out of the budget or whatever. Yeah, I don't like that, and I'll be the first on record to say it. I've said it already that I don't like that. But here's an idea, could this work? And if you guys, it's just been voted down, it's not gonna work, it's not gonna happen. Staff doesn't even need to think about it, right? So, yeah, I don't understand why it's $15,000. Why is, yes, but why?
Yeah, why is it?
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah, I understand. Yeah.
I guess you just have to know it.
If it was 50,000, if we say no.
I don't wanna, to be honest with you, I don't wanna okay any of this because we have a strategic
And I already had this discussion.
That's what I said, I said that walking trails could almost be in our bylaw, but then it's the same thing. We start building all these walking trails. And I've had residents say they would let us have a trail that goes down flat. Because they're walking on the park.
If you think of
Stop.
it, it's an
When will it
overall
stop?
cost of 500,000 to pave it. We're not paving it in 5 years, or 10 or 15 or 25 years for that matter. The other one's been lasted since the town was built. And they only got repaved 3 years ago. And I'm asking for
So
roots and stuff. ripped
was
it
there a
up.
new sidewalk machine, 300,000?
You wanna know why that report's 15 grand? It's because we waited too late in the budgeting process to get council's ideas. And when council brings their ideas in, they just go, I don't know, 15 grand.
Council ideas was here at the strategic planning
No,
session.
that was about strategic planning, it wasn't about our budget.
Yeah, this is where our talk, that's where, like, a lot of.
Would have been
that-
nice if our mayor would have made it so that I could go to that, but
I know, it's, that's another.
for his schedule, his new work schedule, but.
Yeah.
Still not.
Oh, yeah. Dude, I'm so thirsty. Tell Bernie when I'm talking. I don't know if you can tell when I'm talking about it.
Okay, let's call back to order. Oh, sorry, missing one. Two. Okay.
So now I was waiting on you guys.
I was just expecting.
Did you watch Red on the weekend?
Oh, who thought?
And got. Yes, I did.
Okay. All right, we're all back. Call back to order. We're on community fishing hole. Councillor Howe, did you want to speak to this?
Yeah, so this came up a couple of years ago, and I don't even really know why it lost traction. I think what happened is we got a report from staff saying it was going to be $1 million to put in a community fishing hole, and everybody just went, yeah, no, we're not doing that, and it fell off the budget. That's what I remember happening. Later on, I had heard through other people that some professionals within the community said that's absolutely ridiculous. We could absolutely have put this thing together for a very minimal budget. And so I just thought maybe we put it back out on the table. I've heard a lot of people talking in the community about an outdoor skating rink. This is right within our community. Yeah, it's a little walk to get there, but I think that adds a little bit of ambiance going down there. And I just think that, adding it to what the Mark Deely is doing at the school with the fish farm. Yeah, they're not raising trout or anything, but they could possibly, and just get him involved in the conversations. This is something we'd like to do. I think it'd be a cool thing to add down in that area there. I've seen it in Grand Prairie. Grand Prairie has a community fishing hole out by the county sportsplex. It's a dugout, and it was littered with little kids. I could not believe how many people were out there. And this was like September when I was out there watching kids fish out of this thing. And it's in an industrial area, like the waters from the industrial area drain into this pond, and kids are still out there fishing, and I think they're just having a time, right? And our area down there by that pond, if you've ever been down to it, if we could make it happen, it's a cool little spot. It's a unique little area. It's in its own little hollow. And Mark Deely said at one point that, I don't want to put words in his mouth, but I'm pretty positive that he said they could make that work. They could bring in biologists and they would dive it together and they would see if they could make it happen. Maybe they can't. Maybe it doesn't have the right structure in it. But I just thought bring it forward again in collaboration with our First Nation partners to have a cool little area for the community. Why not have a look at it?
Yep. Councillor Kirby?
Thank you, Mayor Bertrand. Just to Councillor Howe, have you reached out and talked to Mark Deely recently on this issue?
Not recently, no.
Councillor Majinski?
Thank you, Mayor Bertrand. Yeah, I like this idea, and if it needs to be aerated, because there is no water, because it is ground table water, so that fluctuates year to year depending on their rainfall and stuff. But the only concern there is if we aerate it, we wouldn't be able to skate on it, because I think it would still have to have open body of water to flow. But either or, if we can go through with the pond to fish, I'd hope to skate on it too. I think it's a great initiative, and I think it's something that could be not $1 million. So.
Councillor Norbury?
Thank you, Mayor Bertrand. So, I mean, if Mark Mr. Deely has talked to you, Councillor Howe, he's talked to me about it and recently, and like he's definitely the resource for us to reach out to. I don't want to put words in his mouth, but he did outline a path for us to do this. And it was not the same report that council received in the $1 million project. It seemed to be a very functional, easy thing to do. We can incorporate it potentially with the high school. So, knowing that in that conversation, he's convinced me that I think it's possible. We should continue.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Kirby?
Thank you, Mayor Bertrand. So when council takes on the reporting and looking into that, we've had reports back that were maybe a little over the top and out of budget. So is this an initiative that, if we have councillors that are talking to Mark and something that he brings back to council to support, is that a better route to go, or is it a route for ourselves to look into it?
I think it's definitely, I think this is granted and warranted. It is a community asset that's being underutilized at the moment, and there's opportunities for possible expansion. From what I remember years ago, when Fish Farm was first started, Mr. Deely did look into hosting trout, and the Ministry of Environment wasn't on board with that, and that's why they went to goldfish. So I'm not sure if that situation has changed or not, but it is certainly something that is worth exploring, especially for the skating area. I agree with Councilor Majinski, the two won't go hand in hand because the pond isn't deep enough, so it would need aerating. So that would make impossible to skate on, but has been a lot of talk about a winter skating area in the community. We have had it in the past. The weather over the last few years has definitely not cooperated. This year, I think it was possible at certain times, but not sure if staff, Ms. Thompson, can you comment on the status of a skating area, please?
Thank you, Mayor Bertrand. So I do understand there was the possibility of putting in an outdoor arena, and in talking with staff, the weather before Christmas wasn't sufficient to maintain a good ice, and so staff were looking at it into January, and then it got cold. We are middle of February at this time, and with the arena right now and the availability for people to rent at the arena. I know it's a different atmosphere than an outdoor arena, but at this time, with the additional costs that would be required to put in an outdoor arena for a shorter period of time, staff just kind of said maybe we'll leave it this year because we do have the arena open right now for people to utilize when it's not being rented. And with COVID, there's quite a bit of time available.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Kirkowka.
Yeah, thank you, Worship. So yeah, I've actually chatted to Mark Dealey quite a bit, and recently as well, but a few years ago, it was something I brought forward, and it was, after talking with Mark, so I think this is a viable thing, and I know we talk about aerating and everything else, it's actually storm water could be diverted into there. And I think that's up for the report to come back and staff to look at that, but we could divert storm water into that with an outlet. I mean, Len Thompson Fish Pond, Lacoma, Alberta, that's how it's done. And I imagine this dugout that Councillor Howden spoke about probably has the same thing, an outlet. They have the storm water coming in with an out valve going out, so if it gets too high, it can drain. I know previous talking to Mark the previous time, we had some local divers that were willing to dive that and check the pond out, and my understanding that probably still stands today from Mr. Dealey. I just think there needs to be some help on his side getting gear there and stuff. But I think it's viable to at least research it, reach out to Mr. Dealey. He has a lot of background, not only for himself being a biologist in regards to that, but he actually has friends that he's worked with in years past that were willing to come up at that time. And I would imagine when he reaches out to his colleagues, we could probably still see that. And I think this was something that Mark really wanted to see, at least looking into it, get some information back on it. And I think we should support it and have staff reach out to Mark and work through this.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Kirby, then Norbury, then Hal.
Thank you, Mayor Bertrand. Yes, this topic has come up a few times. Instead of seeing it a report for $15,000, I'd rather have this brought up at a PMP where we can invite Mark Dealey in and have a discussion about it. And as far as the skating option for the pond, it was only 40 minutes ago how we were talking about the trail in and out of there is too hard to get to and up and down. Plus residents are looking for something close so that their kids can be close within the limits close to the community center. So as far as it sounds nice, but to develop it as the skating rink, I don't think so. I'll vote against this as it stands, and I think it's more of a PMP or going out to RFP.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Norbury.
Thank you, Mayor Bertrand. Councillor Kirby brought up a point, and I'm kind of curious, like where, we're talking about aerating it. From my discussions is sometimes like you can have yearly fish kills, and you just get the high school to repopulate it again, right? Then we keep the fish farm going, or repopulating it every year. I don't think that it'd be cheaper. We don't potentially need to aerate it.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Howell.
Yeah, and I don't know all the specifics on that stuff. That isn't what I do for a living. But what I do know is that this is something that if we were able to pull it together, we may be able to do a fishing hole. We may be able to do a skating rink. I'm not looking for a fancy skating rink. I'm not looking for boards and this and that. It's just somewhere that you can go shovel it off, and it's an area where we can get in and out of. But the important part to this is the staff time component to it. Is there anything that we need to know from staff why we could not do this? That's what I was looking for in the report from staff. Again, did not expect it to be $15,000. We already have some type of a similar report on the shelf about this that Mr. Wall did for us that we could look at and see why it was $1 million. But this is more along, is there anything in legalities, or is there any reason why you cannot alter a water body or something along those terms that why we couldn't do this? And if there aren't anything along those terms, that's when the discussion with somebody like Mr. Dealey happens and say, how can we pull this together? What do we need to do? What do we need for a budget to make this happen? That's kind of what I was talking about. Ask staff to look at it first, is to see, is this possible to do? You may not be able to touch water now, I don't know, but it's just a thought, again. And that's where I was going with staff time, not so much as just Mr. Dealey, right? So. Okay,
thank you. Councillor Majinski.
Thank you, Mayor Bertrand. A lot of the times we hear about accessibility to places that we go to in the community, Toboggan Hill, skating rink, the interpretive trail. I just don't understand how far it has to be from your home to call it an inconvenience. Like, we're talking about the pond in Grand Prairie. That's an industrial. If you want to go to downtown, that's a 30-minute drive.
Yeah.
You know, like, and they're worried about having people walk 15 minutes to something. We're very fortunate in this community to have everything so close. I don't think they are accessibility issues, as people would like to have something negative to say about it. And I'll say it, I don't, you know, like, I read it, I don't comment, but I'll comment here. So, you know, if we're gonna provide services for the community, they should be very grateful for them, especially for the amount of taxes they pay. It's like Councilor Norbury said earlier, we incorporate the water on your taxes. Other communities, they add that on there. And that's not part of it, and that's just the way it goes. So, you know, for us to have accessibility to some of these things, we have great trails, great access to everything, whether they're the ATV trails, the walking trails we have, it's good. So, and to have if we try to put in a fishing pole, where it is and how to access it isn't the steep part, it's on the other side, where the big dock is. So I think we would be fairly safe there, but I could see there maybe being legality issues of when it's closed for skating and when the water starts to melt and runoff goes in there. But I think we should definitely look into this. And these are ballpark figures at $15,000, so I don't think they would technically. It might be just a quick conversation, maybe a quick phone call, and then it won't come into that high price range. And I don't think we should dictate on a lot of these decisions on the price that we see here until we get a full report back.
Okay, thank you. Any other comments? Entertain a motion. Okay, completion of wayfinding sign project. Not sure who brought this forward, Councilor Howe?
So this one was when we put all the money into all these new signs that we went around the community, and we had tons and tons of time and debate and committees, and all this work went into it to create these beautiful signs. The reason we did it was because there weren't enough signs and people were quite confused by the ones that were here, and they were all in different orders and magnitudes. We never took all the other ones down. That was the whole point of putting up all these fancy new signs, was once we got those all in place, we'd take all the other signs down, and it's never been completed. So I asked to add this, if it needs money for staff to remove those signs, or does council just want to leave all those signs up? To me, I think a lot of them should be removed, because we put all the new ones in place that have the marketing and the global geopark and all the stuff that we said we had to do, and we had to spend all this money to put in place. So let's take down all the old ones.
Okay, Councilor Norbury?
Just for a little clarifications, like Councilor Howard, are you talking like those big green ones that are like provincially or federally recognized? Or different ones?
No. So local ones in the community, like they were blue and white. The museum is up in this direction. The community center displays are down in this direction. Golf course wayfinding sign is a different color sign. They had all these different signs around the community, and that was one of the reasons it was brought in, to say like there's no cohesiveness to it. So we brought in like the tourism action committee, and I think that Councilor Kirby was involved a lot in this of how they were going to design the signs, and everything had to be branded with our TR logo and the global geopark. Anything we did from that point forward had to have these two logos on it, but all these other signs stuck around. So do we need money to get rid of those signs, or is there any reason why they're still here? That's just wanted to add that to it.
Councilor Majinski?
Are you also including the big TR wayfinding ones that are big wooden structures, the one up by Vestas in the open lot there, and the one on the entrance into Tumbler Ridge? Are those kind of the same? Because those are pretty old and decrepit.
Councilor Howe?
So I wasn't really specifically thinking of any specific signs. There are a few that pop into my mind. The one you talk about, I think, is a snowmobile route that goes from there to the back highway. I mean, if it needs to be removed, it needs to be removed. I don't even know if that route is even utilized anymore. We've actually changed the ATV route by putting in that four-way stop on Mackenzie and then we cut trail along in there. So that's changed quite a bit as well. It may not be relevant anymore, but that's for staff to figure out. If that stuff needs to come down, it should come down. But you know, I don't know what all the ones are, but if you drive around tonight, you'll probably see a whole pile of signs around that aren't the Global Geopark ones and don't have the branding that we were so excited to spend money on to get in place.
Councillor Kirby?
Thank you, Mayor Bertrand. It's crazy, I guess you just get used to the whole signs everywhere that I haven't even realized that there was anything old still up there. I do remember previous council is that we had to put back up the hospital and the police sign because they needed to be. And those were the only two I was actually aware of. So, yeah, I see that there's no money involved in this, so I think that maybe there's I support this to figure out what our signs are.
So, Ms. Thompson, would an assessment of the signs in town be needed, or is this something that staff could recognize and?
Thank you, Mayor Bertrand. I don't know. I didn't know what signs these were or anything, so I would like to maybe get a little more detail on what it is and maybe go for a drive so I can understand more what the signs are, because I'm at a bit of a loss myself for them.
Okay.
But it could be an assessment. I'm not sure if we need to look further into what we have. I'm not sure if we even have a sign, do any asset management on our sign side, which would be interesting to find out as well.
Good point. Yeah. Okay, Councillor Norbury, then Majinski.
Thank you, Mayor Bertrand. I think it's sort of been said, so I'll be brief in that my concern only lies with the provincially recognized or federally recognized symbols that people recognize, hospital, fire, these sort of things. Like, I'd hate to see those go down because,
No, we can't.
you know, yeah, we need them there, right? We can't replace that with a word.
Yep. Councillor Majinski.
Mayor Bertrand, I did talk to Ms. Thompson today about one trail, or one sign in particular, and it's the TR Point Trail that is out on the trail. It's a big upright structure that's kind of falling apart, and I think that one should be taken down as it is a potential hazard.
Thank you. Okay. Upgrade and modernize audio recording council chambers. Councillor Howe.
So I was actually expecting to see this in our budgeting that staff was going to do. We've talked about it numerous times in here, and we've had lots of issues with it, and it cost 50 grand. It's a lot of money, but you know, to me, with the Zoom meetings and having lawyers call in and talking to tax consultants and whoever else that we need to call to have that call, it should be visual by this time, right? Everybody's doing Zoom meetings. We don't have the ability to do it in our council chambers. It could potentially save us a ton of money of having to fly people up. Everybody's going to go to the Zoom meetings at some point. We should have the ability to make it happen in this council chamber. And to me, we've had audio issues. I talk to people all the time about this recording system that we have in here. It takes us how long to shut it down and bring it back on? 15 or 20 minutes? Like, we can't shut it down for a closed portion of our meeting and then bring it back up to, you know, that's a disservice to the community. This is something we tried. I think it's used in the community. People go back and watch the videos afterwards. And to me, I think it's time for an upgrade. I also don't like the fact that, you know, we sometimes it gets a little bit hit and miss of who's up first and who's next. I know you've started to do a better job of recording people's names and stuff, but there are other places where you push the button and then you're pushed in line. And then as the mayor, you just say, okay, number 2 was you, and number 3 is you, and you just, as you're cued in, it gets taken down, and it may add a little more flow to our meetings. Also, when staff speak, nobody can hear them on the recording because they don't have mics in front of them, and they never, you know, use the mics that are out here for press or whatever, right? So it's something that we've got to do a little bit better job on, and to me, I think we should.
Ms. Thompson, can you update us on some upgrades that you've accomplished?
Thank you, Mayor Bertrand, through council. So we brought in a new hard drive, which is speeding everything up. So if we do restart, it doesn't take that 15 or 20 minutes. We did move the mics around and turn the mic volumes up as well. So there have been slow upgrades that we've been trying. We did also change the resolution that we pushed to YouTube, so our resolution should be better as well. And we're going a little bit on feedback from what we hear, because we are making headway every time we try something different. And in regard to Zoom, so we can do Zoom meetings when we do Zoom meetings in council chambers when we're not live streaming. So we're currently looking into the ability to do a Zoom meeting and still live stream. The only concern we're having right now is that the person that's on the other side of the screen actually can't see us because we would need like an additional camera. So that's something that we are currently looking into. A lot of it is learning the system a little bit more and what the capabilities are. Our camera is old, but it is still a very good camera. So we were trying to make use of what we have. And the original cost that I had gotten earlier, like when I first got here, I had gotten like a verbal quote. It was about $90,000 to upgrade everything for sound and AV, which is why we were trying to work with what we had and make smaller gains on it to see if we could make it work well.
Thank you. Councilor Norbury.
Thank you, Mayor Bertrand. I think we need to get caught up in the modern era as it has caught up with us, especially in our live streaming. You see there's 6 people watching, right? Five, 6. Anyways, we get a few viewers every time and we have more people watching it. I do also hear the constant complaints about we can't hear some people. And I think these systems are independent of each other, right? Like it'd be great if we could bring them all in. So our microphones are going into the live feed versus into the speakers that are being caught by the camera, right? And it's connecting all of these to create that experience. If we're talking about specific wants, I mean, let's turn this into a toggle or something, right? So that we can turn it off. People don't hear the constant rustling, us opening whatever, right? That's something I hope we can incorporate in this, because it is not a great viewing experience. Even if you're going back to listen, to re-clarify what's being said, it is a real challenge. Mm-hmm. And if you're on the phone too, right? Like Councilor Kirby, you know the deal, right? Like I was in my truck with the volume maxed just so I can hear a couple of people. You just can't do it, right? Mm-hmm. So I think it would be a quality of life for our residents and ourselves.
Absolutely agree. Councilor Kirby.
Thank you, Mayor Bertrand. Talking with Ms. Thompson today, there are some options with iCompass that I think that we can up our game in here for sure. One thing I came across with another municipality is they have council vote recording. So I thought that was a great thing for ourselves or for the residents. If they have an issue that they're coming back through, if it's land expansion, whatever, they can go back into a previous agenda and see who voted for what, and then they know who to come talk to change their minds or talk to us about an issue. So I think that would be one thing I'd really like to have added is vote recording.
Thank you. Any other comments, questions? Okay, moving on to upgrade lights on Monkman and Mackenzie to LED. This is an outstanding project that we've been waiting for BC Hydro to come back to us with. Ms. Thompson, can you give us an update on that, please?
Thank you, Mayor Bertrand. From my understanding, the district needed to complete an audit with the low sodium lights that are currently there. The district had to choose what lights we wanted to replace them to be replaced with. So that audit has been completed and submitted to BC Hydro. And from my understanding, they have committed to having all the lights changed out within 2 years.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Howe.
Yeah, so I brought this one up again because it's been one of those things that just annoys me when I look into the community. We've had these beautiful new LED lights put in that's supposed to save us all this money. Mr. Clickash was one of the ones that came up with the idea here to save money for the community. And those sodium lights or whatever they are down our 2 main drags. That's what you first see when you come into the communities. You always see those things. Now, since I sent this idea to our CAO, I've actually seen there are 3 on Mackenzie Way that have been changed out. Mr. Wall told us previously that they didn't have the technology to change that voltage to LED, and they may not have at that time, but obviously they have the technology to do it now. Where this comes in budget discussion for me is that if BC Hydro is coming in to replace all these lights in the next 2 years, we should ask for additional lights to be put on Mackenzie Way on the back sides of the poles to light up the walking path of the new areas we created. So right now on the area when you come down Murray and you head towards the lights, that area has lights on it already because it was an existing path from early in the 80s. When we added the new paths, there's no lights that come back off the back sides of the poles. So that may be where we would have to ask BC Hydro that do we cover that cost or do they cover that cost? But I would think if we do it the way that those ones are lit, which is every third or fourth pole or second or third pole or something like that, it's likely going to cost us a lot less than what it's going to cost us to light the other road on Mackenzie because the poles are on the opposite side of the road. Mackenzie is going to require lighting similar to what Chetwynd has, I would think. It's going to be those little pedestal lights that will light it, but we can do it probably a lot cheaper on Mackenzie if we do it while BC Hydro is doing it. So the idea there for budget discussions, if BC Hydro is coming in to do this, can we ask them that, we're willing to put some skin in the game here to get lights on the back sides of the poles, every second or third pole along Mackenzie?
Thank you, Councillor Norby.
Thank you, Mayor Bertrand. I was with you, Councillor Howe, until we said, let's talk to BC Hydro about putting money in. We were just talking about that, when we're talking about internet and how that could come into a conflict with the community. So I'm absolutely in support of contacting BC Hydro about getting that stuff lighting and get proper LEDs and stuff. I would like a little bit of clarification on staff and the complications if we start talking to BC Hydro about paying money to move that along.
Or legalities.
Thank you.
Ms. Thompson?
Thank you, Mayor Bertrand, through council. So we would need to, staff would need to look in and talk with BC Hydro. The pools are owned by BC Hydro. I'm not sure what their policies are on somebody else paying for an additional light or how that would work within the community charter. So it would be something that I would definitely ask to have some patience while we look into more detail.
Yeah, and from what I understood previously from a previous mayor down south was BC Hydro was looking to recoup the costs of replacing those lights and charging the municipalities to not only replace the lights but also increase the rate that they're charging. So if BC Hydro is prepared to replace all those lights at their cost, I'm very happy about that because they haven't spoken to us about it. But if we're talking to them about adding additional or putting money into additional lighting, that's possibly when the conversation could come up about paying for the rest of them. So I'm a little leery about that, but it's definitely worth discovery, but maybe in other ways as far as the other lighting project that could be included in that. Any other comments, questions? Councillor Kirkcalka.
A separate motion for the council special project Schedule A be approved as amended.
Seconder? Sir Howe? Discussion? Councillor Kirby?
Thank you, Mayor Bertrand. So this will involve everything that is, okay, I'm getting confused on what we've taken out and what is in because as it stands, I'm not for the fishing hole as it is with the $15,000. And that's just my only one. I would like to remove the community fishing hole from
Okay.
Schedule A.
So just to recap, we have taken out the lighting of existing trail and conversion of meeting rooms at this point. Councillor Norbury.
Thank you, Mayor Bertrand. I'm not in favor of the motion at this time, as we do still have 2, 4, 6 items on the map that have yet to be discussed. I would prefer that we have the opportunity before we make the motion.
Okay, thank you. I happen to agree. I would like to pull a couple more parts out of the backside of this as well, so I would be voting against. Councillor Kirkowka.
It doesn't stop the discussion in regards to the information.
True.
Right? It's as amended. We've already amended it twice on the front. It's putting a motion on it so that when we're done, the next part of this, it's the vote. We're now going to debate in regards to the 6 items.
Yeah, but the motion is asking to approve this as we have amended it already. So after that motion is passed, then we can't amend this anymore.
And going with that, when everyone decides to shut the meeting down in 11 minutes, what if we don't get through all these? And then there are the last, whatever we don't discuss, automatically in there, right? So I think we discuss them all, then we pass it.
Any other comments, questions? All in favor? Opposed? Defeated, thank you. Summer fun area for the curling rink, Councillor Howell?
Again, as it reads there, you know, like, the ice is out now. We talked about trying to get more utilization in the rec center. This is an idea that we banged around for a while and never really put pen to paper on it. The idea is, you know, maybe it can be ran by the community center, or maybe it can be ran by the youth center from time to time, but it's not just for our youth. It can be utilized for adults as well. You know, like, there's opportunities in there for fundraising for the Lions Club to utilize their concession as well. You know, as it reads there. So I don't know how to budget for that, but what's council's flavor on something like that? Something that you could add to every year. You know, you put in $25,000 or $30,000 and you add to it $5,000-6,000 a year. New ping pong tables this year. New couches for a gaming console area. Virtual reality could go in that area. Basketball, indoor basketball shooting area. Batting cage, golf simulator, something like that inside the community.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Norbury?
Thank you, Mayor Bertrand. I mean, the idea sounds fine, but my concern comes with how are we going to pay for it? And like, if we want to see a summer fun area, I mean, we're going to have how much in capital assets down there without somebody watching it? We have to create. My concern is we need to create a whole new position. Right? Like anytime you add services, you add costs, right? We're already going through an audit of our community center, and now we're already, to me, this seems like a rabbit hole where we're going to have to throw a bunch more money down, right? I've been interested in hearing staff capacity and their ability, but I think anytime you add, you're going to have to pay, and that's what all this says.
Thank you. Councillor Kirby?
Thank you, Mayor Bertrand. At this time, we already have a summer fun program that hits kids aged 5 to 12. Some of these activities that are mentioned here are already being done at the library. We have the golf course. We have a movie area, which the fairgrounds is going to be taking on. I'm kind of worried about where we're going to store all this equipment. And first and foremost, it's the kids themselves. I would sooner like kids to come up with these ideas of what they want, because it could be just like herding cats. We give them all these options, but you know, the kids that we're gonna hit, like the older kids, are out swimming, biking, fishing, quadding, whatever. So I'm going to have to vote against this one.
Thank you. Councillor Majinski?
Thank you, Mayor Bertrand. Councillor Howell brought up some ideas prior about having a new purpose-built building for the gym. This, I think, would incorporate quite well, as if we had something, like he said, on top of just the gym, a climbing wall. This could be something as well, and I don't think he's far off of saying converting the curling rink into something like this full-time. Might not be the option, but if we have a purpose-built building where we have all the stuff and it's stored and we're not taking in and out, because that's my concern right now, is if we're trying to move out pool tables and batting cages and stuff like that out of the curling rink, where are we going to store them in the winter months or 4 to 6 months? So that's my only concern there is moving it around. I think it'd be more advantageous to have a new or an expansion on either the youth center or the gym so that they can have these more amenities instead of just a hot dog stand in the community, in the youth center, right? So they have a lot more stuff that they can do and keep them engaged during the winter months because we do have long winters here. So, and to have them, you know, a golf simulator, bowling, whatever, right? I think it would be well used in our community and not just for kids. Like it doesn't have to be considered a youth center. It can be for adults because, you know, me, I need to practice golf and I like dodgeball and stuff like that. So this would be, you know, a purpose-built building that had lots of square footage, and that could even come into play when Councilor Norway says about this mushroom or whatever outdoor building, you know, and then you can have the running track and encompassing it all. So, but that would be a big scope of the idea here. Like it would be huge. Like it's a whole nother community center where it would be all of these activities in one area. So,
Multiplex, yeah. Councilor Norbury?
And a lot of these are great ideas, and some of them are being tried by organizations already. You know, and I think that's where we can save some money in having these organizations try and do these things. You know, it comes back to, do you build it and they will come, or do you follow a community-addressed desire, right? You know, there's a couple. Ping pong. I've tried ping pong. It's not super successful. I mean, I know Mayor Bertrand, I know you say you play, but we haven't had a chance to
Not yet, no.
to play yet. But that's sort of the thing, right? Like people talk, yeah, they'll do that, but then it's not really a worthwhile option, right? Some of these opportunities, like the hockey trot practice here. Well, why don't we just utilize the hockey rink when the ice is in? You just put it there, right? So that's an opportunity for, I think, other organizations to do this to alleviate the cost from us.
Yeah, I do like the idea of trying to utilize the spaces that aren't being utilized. For example, the curling rink and the arena on the off seasons. I like, you know, this is really just a shot in the dark idea with a whole bunch of ideas put together. But I think what it comes down to is really trying to find and optimize the use of those areas on the off season. So I am in favor of exploring that idea for both the arena and the curling rink. Councillor Kurkalka.
Yeah, you know, I think there's some great options and concepts in here, like whether it be the golf or the bowling. Like maybe this is something instead of that staff create a summer fun area. We direct staff to reach out to organizations, maybe the youth center. I mean, don't get me wrong, I don't think we can expect, so I'm not saying that we reach out to the youth center and then they go and do all this and file and stuff. But maybe reach out to the youth center, to the board. Give them the thought, this is an idea that came out of councils. It came from council out. Came from council. What's your thoughts? No, there'd be no charge for you to use the curling rink. And maybe they need some funds to be able to purchase a few of the things to begin with. You know, maybe they need some money to, you know, figure out some batting cages or whatever. And then I think that's the discussion this council has. Do we want to contribute $40,000 to a youth center or to another organization? Purchase these items that then they oversee it. Now maybe they sell weekend passes to the fun zone. But it could be a great option for another organization.
No, I agree.
I mean, I only mentioned the youth center. There's other organizations. I think of the youth center because to me that's kind of the concept here. But there's other organizations that might want to take that on.
Absolutely. Councillor Kirby?
Thank you, Member Trent. Look, I like that idea from Councilor Kukoka. I mean, just after, you know, organizing Gristfest for so many years, there's a whole bunch of companies out there that have traveling, blow-ups, whether it's carnival stuff. There's things that you could possibly rent it out as an attraction for a few months. That would give a kind of a neat thing where we're not investing in a bunch of equipment and, you know, you can have it, you know, have an option for people to rent that out, whether it's a market square, whether it's fun stuff for kids or what have you. I think utilizing it and putting it out, you know, saying that this is a space that's available for these months, then maybe we could see some revenue and bring something into town. I know people have talked about farmers markets and what have you. That could be an option. So, you know, if we're not just limited to making this, and finding if that area would be usable to business, et cetera, then I think it's worth a shot.
Okay, Councillor Gorkalka.
So, this is one of these items, it doesn't have a price tag to it anyways, but I wonder if this is an item that maybe we move to a PMP. I know there was talk about a couple other areas, but this one might be a good discussion by council to get more of into a conversation about it and what groups we could reach out to. I mean, I don't think we can ask the youth center to do something like this without not putting funds in for them to be able to go and purchase certain things. But we have the option of sea cans for storage come winter. There's a space up in Public Works here already. So there could be some help there, maybe from this council where there's some money put, but it could also be a revenue generation for them. I mean, they were doing movie night now, it's done right now due to COVID. COVID, this might be a little tough too, but COVID rules are a little bit more in favor of the youth and that anyways. So maybe they could get it going this summer or next summer. Maybe we should have it at a PMP to get more into discussion, see where council sits to give clearer direction to staff who to reach out to. Maybe it's not just youth center, maybe it's youth center, TRD society, who knows? I'm not sure of all the groups.
I agree. I think that's a good idea, Ms. Thompson. Okay, Councillor Majinski.
Yeah, and Councillor touched on it quite quickly there, TRDs, and even that area down there to have something for this. But if we do bring this to a PMP, I think a couple good topics would be like something like would be helpful for businesses as a team building thing. So you can take your whole staff and your employees down there and help with, having some fun, like instead of, we always have Christmas parties and it just seems like people, the adults just like to go to these parties to have a beverage and they go home, right? So this would be something that you prolong, enjoy yourself, and I think it'd also be good for retention on nonprofit groups where they can go out, because like right now it's hard for nonprofits to go and enjoy themselves with their group members, say, hey, let's go do something with all the regulations in place right now, but down the road it'd be great to have something for them to do other than the knitting group or the plank group or whatever, right? So they can do something else other than.
Yep, thank you. I'd like to make a motion to continue the meeting after 3 hours. Seconder, Councillor Norbury. Discussion. Councillor Kirby.
Thank you, Mayor Bertrand. I will be voting against continuation. I think this was a good opportunity for council members who weren't able to make it to strategic planning to get some of their ideas, and some of the ideas are great. And I hope in the future that we can organize better, that we actually, all of council can make it to strategic planning, and yeah, thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Norbury.
When we made strategic planning session, we made sure everyone was able to make it. I made my schedule to make it. So, I'm in favor of continuing the meeting. We still have some more to go. This is just going to get put off to the next one. Fresh into it. Let's keep going.
Thank you. All in favor? Opposed? Can you opposed again, please? Defeated, thank you. Adjournment, please. Councillor Gorkalka.
The Monday, February 22nd, 2020 budget meeting be adjourned.
Seconder. Ski. Favor? Opposed? Carried, thank you. Thank you, staff.